egg, 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 egg,
Hi. It's me. The real me. Not a little thing that sits on the— oh wait, actually, I do have a— hold on. Where do I put it again? Over here somewhere? Was it here? Is it this one? No, it's not that one. I had like a little Gauntlet Queen that sits in the corner and points at me. We all remember that one from last time I did one of these. But I don't remember where I put her. Oh, there I am. There. Hi everyone! Yes, I've got Rabbit Big Climbing merch on right now. It's very nice. I would have like dressed up for the occasion, but I did a lot of cycling and general walking and just being in the hot sun, and I just didn't feel like it. So I didn't. So you get a more casual Gauntlet Queen for this one. Put me down? No, Jody, not today. Today is a Just Me stream. I haven't had a Just Me stream in so long. Also, Green Clonk, thank you for the pet. I mean, I guess, sure, you know, I guess I can put one on little Gauntlet Queen, which is— no, that's just Gauntlet Queen. I'm not Gauntlet Queen. I'm Zoe. That's Gauntlet Queen, separate entity from me. Where's the thing? Over here. There we go. There we go. That works, I suppose. These avatars getting pretty realistic. I know, it's crazy. And this time I might not even give it back. I might just keep it for myself this time. Who knows? Anyway, hi everyone, good evening. It's time for a book. It's time for this book. I could not get the original cover even though it's so nice. It's impossible to find that one. And there are a million different versions of the book in general. But this one is the only one that has all of the stories in it, and also doesn't have any stupid changes or whatever. And the cover is pretty nice. Even though he is not in yellow on this cover, which is weird. But, you know, it's okay. I mean, he's in the yellow place, so that's something. It's the Signalis book, yeah, exactly. This is weird, I've never seen you in real life before. That's not true, Jody. Because one time, you co-hosted a different book reading stream. So that's when you saw me in real life, and no other occasions. That's the only one. Also, yes, I've got a lot of fun bracelets and such. There's a girl with too many polygons, I'm scared. This isn't polygons, gang.
Egg.
You might be misremember or failing to remember some stuff from my— hey, just misfocus. You might be failing to remember some stuff from my lore, or her lore specifically, which is that she is aware that I, the real Zoe, made her, and all the other alts, naturally. I'm a real person. I exist. I'm here. Check me out. So I'm not polygons. So your name is Zoe Queen? No. Her name is Zoe Gauntlet Queen. My name is Zoe, well, you know, Josephine Alice. And then some stuff that you don't have to know. Zoe, in fact, actually has 0 polygons. The least amount of polygons. In fact, she's the ultimate low poly model. Whoa! I never thought about it like that. I'm amazing. I don't trust you. If you're a real, how come when I exit the room, I forget you exist? Velvet Panda, your diagnosis came in, and you have breaks every bone in your body disease. It's actually unrelated. They weren't testing for that.
Egg.
It's gonna Eldritch Horror Beyond the Third Dimension. I'm scary, right? That's hence the scary music. Josephine is not a valid alt name, that's true, that's how you know. Anyway, so this is a book reading stream. If you've never been to one of these, you might notice the thing we've been mentioning the entire time, which is my face. That, you know, a face cam. I'm using a camera to show all of me. Like Shadow. That's how I do these. Because otherwise it's just like a 3D avatar that just sits like this a lot. So I feel like if then it's my face doing that, it's a little better. Plus, I'm gonna be honest, as nice as my camera, my hand tracking setup is and stuff for my avatars, they still don't quite get it. I still move around a little bit more that the cameras just still can't track good. So, it's fun. It's fun to do one of these every now and then. Bid Donut, love your shirt, Zoe. Thanks. Hey, you know what? You can get it for yourself. Let me see. You can get it here at my friend's official merch store. You should. Your outfit is so cute. Thank you. You guys haven't even seen the skirt. Ta-da! Ain't this nice? Ta-da! I got a nice outfit. Also, really good boots, but I'm not gonna show that part. I need the same. Well, I got it at a thrift store, so that's gonna be difficult. But hey, good luck. Puts an oversized shirt on my Yupon. That would be very cute, actually. So yeah, I do these with my face because it's more interesting. And we're gonna do that now, I think. I mean, right after we've done stretches and, oh, a dab. Oh, a dab. Thanks. That's not a stretch, it's a dab. Sonic sticker, a Shadow sticker, right? Let's put that one right over here. Shadow loves scary stories, that's why he's here. And then there are eggs.
Egg.
Mexican, thanks so much for subscribing. Mine is green for winter, but I take fire damage under sun. Yeah, I also had a green skirt that was like this, plaid, but it got too old, sadly. Yes, I'm drinking blood! This is blood, you can tell from how transparent it is. Translucent, is it translucent? Maybe, I'm not 100% sure on what those words all mean, if I'm gonna be totally honest with you. Amy right at the end of where the real Gauntlet Queen is pointing. That's funny. She finally dabs the second I look at a different dab grievously robbed. I'll do another one. There you go. Alright, so if you guys have but one little point, you can already spend it on an egg, which we'll put right over here. Here-ish. And that'll be fun. And there won't be that much to block up this time, since I'm mostly, like, here. I don't really go all the way over here much. So this time we don't even have to worry about blocking UI elements or anything, you know? I'm living for the Halloween vibe. Another Dawn Trails, I'd have nothing to look forward to outside of October. Man, it's always Halloween. It's always Halloween somewhere, and that somewhere is in my heart. One of these days, eggs will overtake the channel and Egg Queen. Egg Queen is not a valid alt name, but who knows? Maybe she'll be so powerful because of all the eggs that it won't even matter. Okay, we are going to do the eggs now! Wow, wow, wow! And the first egg of the day comes to us from Jody Dynalo! And then we've got Kira Cat! Green Clonk. Scroll, scroll, scroll. Mike Loves Rabbit. Lucina of Stardust. Lord Slime Apple. Red Panda Comma. Wibbless. Peppermint Moth. Mecha Fox Girl. Polar Stars. Orange Carnation. Master Gun. And finally, Dapper Blook 64. Thank you guys so much for the starting eggs.
Egg.
And also Melzanoff. Well, I'll just move Shadow over a little bit. There we go. And that finishes the first egg stack of the day. Right, now... the things. Yes, we are good to go. Now, as much as I love my spooky playlist, it's not exactly the vibe to be reading some, like, Victorian era horror. So... let's see. Ooh, you know what? I'm gonna look over here. Dun, 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 dun. Footnotes. There's this like white noise generator that I use that has like all kinds of different themes. And I'm wondering if they have a spooky. Oh, they have an eerie. Go. Did I do it? Oh. This is so hard. Ooh, Dark Forest. Dark Forest! That sounds good, actually. Let's see. Well, I'm spooked. Can hear shit? Oh, of course! Here you go. Now you can. Sorry about that. Cancel the entire time. I mean, maybe. No. I'm glad I don't have to look at this stream because I'm putting up my sun foam as I listen. Good. Nice. I've got sun foam myself. I'm also gonna try to get, like, carpety stuff around my desk when I get new floors. I talked about that earlier in chat. Which might also help with making my audio a little bit better. The real spooks were the audio technical issues we made along the way. They always are. Now this is pretty good, but don't love it. What is this one? This one's apparently also spooky. Damn, it's just like Signalis. You know what the book is from? That's actually a funny coincidence, I gotta say. It's actually so Signalis, that's crazy. That's crazy. That's so great. Anyway. No. Signalis only makes sense if you've read the book, yeah. Let's see. How about I search for Victorian horror background music? Okay. Dark Victorian mansion, piano and cello with dark ambience.
Egg.
So have you seen my, maybe she'll be found in the book. Let's hold on. Can't believe they made a whole book about that one little scene in Signalis' prologue. It's crazy, right? It's so cool. God, I could not get my lipstick to look good again when I tried to reapply it this evening. You can't really tell, I think, on camera, but I know. But, you know, it's fine. Anyway, this is pretty good, I think. Do we like this? Do we think this is good? And KQ, great. Thank you very much for starting the second X deck. Yeah, this is good, right? Alright, so. I've never felt more like a woman than now I've cleaned my room, which might say something about me, but also I think everyone should try it. I will say, ever since getting Yuffie my electric cleaner, I've been a lot better at cleaning my apartment, keeping it like nice and clean and stuff, and it does feel great. Maybe 1 or 2 volume bits down. Okay. Is this better? So, for those who don't know The King in Yellow, there's this game called Signalis, and it's in it. More importantly, The King in Yellow is a collection, it's an anthology of horror stories, although the horror varies per story, that are loosely connected by a play called The King in Yellow. It is a play that anyone who hears it, sees it, reads it, they go mad. Cool! It is a famous story. It's from Victorian times, I do believe. It is in a sense like part of the foundation of this type of horror. H.P. Lovecraft was quoted saying, "Very genuine is the strain of horror, really achieves notable heights of cosmic fear." That's on the back of the book. Something funny to me about quoting H.P. Lovecraft, because yeah, he was really good at writing horror, he was also H.P. Lovecraft. I don't know if you want to put him on your book, you know? It's also in like a ton of Y2K era horror games. It's true, people love to reference it, more so than they love to like do anything else with it. So I've never learned any real part of it. I just know like the the synopsis of a few of the stories, or like the hook of a few of the stories in it. I know if it's influence. Nobody ever adapts it or anything, you know? They just reference it. They just go like, "Oh, the King in Yellow, hey," you know? Which is kind of funny. It's like the Wilhelm scream of horror game props. Yeah, pretty much. Like, just like I'm watching Review Starlight Makes You Go Feral. I need to fucking keep watching that. Like, I've fallen off. I've just been watching Dimension 20. The only king I know that's related to a color is the King of Red Lions. They're the same thing, right? Well, it's funny you should mention red, actually, because on my schedule for this week, when I was first writing it, I wrote the King in Reed. I don't know why I did that. I wrote Reed, and then upon seeing it, I was like, oh, that's a typo. Let me fix that. And I removed the E, so it said the King in red, and then I didn't register that that's not what it's called, you know? So that was an intentional joke. I fucking wish it was. No. I mean, it rhymed with, mad, which I had used earlier on in the sentence. You know, it said like, "Let's go mad, reading the King in red." So that's a cute little rhyme, but it was a coincidence and a mistake, and I fucked up. I'm already going insane. Yay! So, it is a collection of 10 stories. Most editions have 9, but there is a 10th, and it's included in this version, which is one of the reasons why I got it. So we'll be reading some of them. We're not gonna get through this whole book tonight, but that just means we can spread out the madness, and that'll be fun. Can we make a Robot mad? Put Omega with his buddy Shadow. I think if Omega got mad from the King Yellow, I mean, we don't know what kind of madness it'll be. Oh, Shadow, right? I think making Omega mad via the King in Yellow could be disastrous. Alright. Let's say Shadow looking pink. I got it. Okay. I'm not that far gone yet. So, let's begin reading. Blah blah blah, bunch of people saying how much they love it. It says, to my brother. Robot's gonna get mad. Have you seen how robot girls look at mechanic butches? How rude. Okay, there's a whole preface thing where they're talking about why they are, why they have adapted this book with in full, and they're talking a bit about the book itself and the impact that it's had and blah 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 blah, and it's nice, but we're not doing that. The King in Yellow. And the first story. Oh wait, okay. So I believe it's every story is preceded by a part of the play. The King in Yellow. Golden Queen shooting the Amy laser at Channel. Oh my god. That's funny. Distracting a streamer from reading. That's how it goes. That's how these streams tend to go. I just get distracted by chat a lot. To my brother, who I hate and want to go batshit crazy. Just skip to the part where it tells me why this monarch is so unfashionable. Why unfashionable? We don't know if he's unfashionable. That's a bit rude. Also, wait, how did it get here? Thank you so much for the egg. I go into 3D modeling while you read. No more Yuri. For now! There's always Yuri in my heart. But good luck with the work, Malzana. All monarchs are out of fashion, Zoe. Good thing I'm not a real one, then. So, here we go. Along the shore the cloud waves break. The twin suns sink beneath the lake. The shadows lengthen in Carcosa. Strange is the night where black stars rise, and strange moons circle through the skies. But stranger still is lost Carcosa. Songs that the Hyades shall sing, where flap the tatters of the king, must die unheard in dim Carcosa. Song of my soul, my voice is dead. Die thou, unsung, as tears unshed, shall dry and die in lost Carcosa. Casilda's song, The King in Yellow, Act 1, Scene 2. And now we go into the first story. The Repairer of Reputations. It starts off with French that I cannot read. I don't know. I need to redo my nails. Anyway, there's some French there if someone wants to take a screenshot of that. And tell me what it means. Ne rayons pas les-vous? Leur folie dure plus longtemps que la nôtre. Voilà toute la différence. Maybe. something. Ta-da! Spot the difference, I guess. And Polestar, thank you for your sippy. Let's not mock the crazy. Their madness is no longer than ours. Here's the difference. Let's not mock the crazy. Their madness is longer than ours. Here's the difference. That's pretty good. I like that. They've just been at this for longer than us. Toward the end of the year 1920, the government of the United States had practically completed the program adopted during the last months of President Winthrop's administration. I know that it started like this, it's such a whiplash to like hear about this story and then it starts with US politics. I think the meaning got across, Mel's enough, thank you. Right at the end of Amy pointing towards Omega and Shadow. Got it? Flip. I can hear rain outside. I don't know if you guys can hear that. I don't think so. I'm gonna turn on some rain. Let's see. Let's get some stormy weather in here. That'll be nice. Let's see. Is there like an inside? Hold on. Can I get rain inside? Tent, tin roof rain. Cozy? Cozy rain, maybe. We've got the music to offset the cozy. I want to have like a good vibe for us, you know? Okay, hold on, let's see. Tin roof rain? No, no tin roof. That's good enough, I suppose. It's gonna have a diagonal line of Sonic character stickers by the end of this. Yeah, probably. That's okay though. You what? She's unloading water in the castle. Make sure not to stare. I don't know what stare means. I'm so sorry. You guys are waterproof though, so you don't have anything to worry about. Plus, you sink. Okay, so towards the end of the year 1920, the government of the United States had practically completed the program adopted during the last months of President Winthrop's administration. The country was apparently tranquil. Everybody knows how the tariff and labor questions were settled. The war with Germany incident on that country's seizure of the Samoan Islands had left no visible scars upon the Republic, and the temporary occupation of Norfolk by the invading army had been forgotten in the joy over repeated naval victories, and a subsequent ridiculous plight of General von Gartenlaube's forces in the state of New Jersey. The Cuban and Hawaiian investments had paid 100%, and the territory of Samoa was well worth its cost as a coaling station. The country was in a superb state of defense. Every coast city had been well supplied with land fortifications. The army, under the parental eye of the general staff, organized according to the Prussian system, had been increased to 300,000 men, with a territorial reserve of 1,000,000, and 6 magnificent squadrons of cruisers and battleships patrolled the 6 stations of the navigable seas. That was a difficult word, that. Leaving the steam reserve amply fitted to control home waters. The gentlemen from the West had at last been constrained to acknowledge that a college for the training of diplomats was as necessary as law schools are for the training of barristers. Consequently, we were no longer represented abroad by incompetent patriots. The nation was prosperous. Chicago, for a moment paralyzed after a second Great Fire, had risen from its ruins, white and imperial, and more beautiful than the white city which had been built for its plaything in 1893. Everywhere good architecture was replacing bad, and even in New York, a sudden craving for decency had swept away a great portion of the existing horrors. Streets had been widened, properly paved and lighted. Trees had been planted, squares laid out, elevated structures demolished, and underground roads built to replace them. The new government buildings and barracks were fine bits of architecture, and the long systems of stone quays which completely surrounded the island had been turned into parks, which proved a godsend for the population. The subsidizing of the State Theater and State Opera brought its own reward. The United States National Academy of Design was much like European institutions of the same kind. Nobody envied the Secretary of Fine Arts, either his cabinet position or his portfolio. The Secretary of Forestry and Game Preservation had a much easier time, thanks to the new system of National Mounted Police. Boo! Hey, Cap. I keep forgetting about the waterproof thing. Is that brain power thing? Yeah, no, that's all right. You guys don't think so good. We had profited well by the latest treaties with France and England. The exclusion of foreign-born. I wonder if this sentence says anything about the writer. Who is dead, death of the author and all that, but still. The exclusion of foreign-born Jews as a measure of self-preservation, the settlement of the new independent Negro state of Swanee, the checking of immigration, the new laws concerning naturalization, and the gradual centralization of power in the executive all contributed to national calm and prosperity. Ooh. See, when you read old literature, you know you might find some stuff. I'd never heard about such things being in this book. Doesn't mean it's not there. Didn't think we'd run into it that quickly. But it might be sort of like, maybe it is gonna get at something. Maybe it's intentional, worrisome. You said Lovecraft endorsed this because that tracks. Yeah, that makes more sense now. Also, esteemed Jester, thank you for your egg. When the government solved the... Jesus Christ! He read the first 3 pages and went, yup, it's peak. Oh no, oh, this... We'll keep reading. Again, it's old, it's of its time. We can look at it with current eyes. But this next sentence is also, I don't know. Again, maybe it's all getting at something. Also, Ethereal Red, thank you for your egg as well. I'm also gonna change the wording here. Again, I specifically wanted this one because I didn't want any changes. I wanted the most purest form of the book. I'm gonna change this sentence. This is why it drives people crazy, exactly. When the government solved the Native American problem and squadrons of Native American cavalry scouts in native costumes were substituted for the pitiable organizations tacked on to the tail of skeletonized regiments by a former Secretary of War, the nation drew a long sigh of relief. I'm not sure if this is for or against them. When, after the colossal Congress of Religions, bigotry and intolerance were laid in their graves and kindness and charity began to draw warring sects together, many thought the millennium had arrived, at least in a new world, which, after all, is a world by itself. So that implies, you know, like, ooh, no more bigotry and intolerance. That sounds positive? Stuff about the Jews, though. The thing about the independent state for people of color, I was just taken aback by the N word, you know, the old N word, but it's still, I think that part is good. I'm not sure about the Jew thing though. That just seems bad. Okay, I guess. Okay, I think it's fine. Well, relatively speaking, for its time. Well, we're gonna keep reading. I mean, it is a horror story after all, I suppose. This is like watching a white guy's video essay on YouTube and trying to figure out if he's a Nazi or not. That is what this is like, yeah. But self-preservation is the first law, and the United States had to look on in helpless sorrow as Germany, Italy, Spain, and Belgium writhed in the throes of anarchy, while Russia, watching from the Caucasus, stooped and bound them one by one. In the city of New York, the summer of 1899 was signalized by the dismantling of the elevated railroads. The summer of 1900 will live in the memories of New York people for many a cycle. The Dodge statue was removed in that year. Don't know this statue. Did not know this statue. I guess because it was removed a long time before I was born. Signalis Mitch? Yo, signalized? In the following winter began that agitation for the repeal of the laws prohibiting suicide, which bore its final fruit in the month of April 1920, when the first governmental lethal chamber was opened on Washington Square. I had walked down that day from Dr. Archer's house on Madison Avenue, where I had been a mere formality. Ever since that fall from my horse 4 years before, I had been troubled at times with pains in the back of my head and neck, but now for months they had been absent, and the doctor had sent me away that day saying there was nothing more to be cured in me. It was hardly worth his fee to be told that. I knew it myself. Still, I did not grudge him the money. What I minded was the mistake which he made at first. When they picked me up from the pavement where I lay unconscious, and somebody had mercifully sent a bullet through my horse's head. Oh. I was carried to Dr. Archer, and he, pronouncing my brain affected, placed me in his private asylum, where I was obligated to endure treatment for insanity. At last he decided that I was well, and I, knowing that my mind had always been as sound as his, if not sounder, paid my tuition, as he jokingly called it, and left. I told him, smiling, that I would get even with him for his mistake, and he laughed heartily, and asked me to call him once in a while. I did so, hoping for a chance to even up accounts, but he gave me none, and I told him I would wait. The fall from my horse had fortunately left no evil results. On the contrary, it had changed my whole character for the better. From a lazy young man about town, I had become an active, energetic, temperate, and above all else, ambitious. There was only one thing which troubled me. I laughed at my own uneasiness, and yet it troubled me. During my convalescence, I had bought and read for the first time The King in Yellow. I remember after finishing the first act that it occurred to me that I had better stop. I started up and flung the book into the fireplace. The volume struck the barred grate and fell open on the hearth in the firelight. If I had not caught a glimpse of the opening words in the second act, I should never have finished it. But as I stooped to pick it up, my eyes became riveted to the open page, and with a cry of terror, or perhaps it was joy so poignant that I suffered in every nerve, I snatched the thing out of the coals and crept, shaking, to my bedroom, where I read it and reread it, and wept, and laughed, and trembled with a horror which at times assails me yet. This is the thing that troubles me, for I cannot forget Carcosa, where black stars hang in the heavens, where the shadows of men's thoughts lengthen in the afternoon, where the twin suns sink into the lake of Hali, and my mind will bear forever the memory of the pallid mask. I pray God will curse the writer, as the writer has cursed the world with this beautiful, stupendous creation, terrible in its simplicity, irresistible in its truth, a world which now trembles before the King in Yellow. Damn. This is insane. I didn't expect him to introduce it so quickly and so aggressively. Good. I like it. This is exactly like Review Starlight, actually, you're right. It's also apparently just like Lies of P. I'll buy it. I'll accept it. When the French government seized the translated copies which had just arrived in Paris, London, of course, became eager to read it. It is well known how the book spread like an infectious disease from city to city, from continent to continent, barred out here, confiscated there, denounced by press and pulpit, censored even by the most advanced of literary anarchists. No definite principles had been violated in those wicked pages, no doctrine promulgated, no convictions outraged. It could not be judged by any known standard, yet, although it was acknowledged that the supreme note of art had been struck in The King in Yellow, all felt that human nature could not bear the strain, nor thrive on words in which the essence of purest poison lurked. The very banality and innocence of the first act only allowed the blow to fall afterward, with more awful effect. This is just like twitch.tv/Gauntlet Queen. You're not wrong. If you go there right now, you'll hear the exact words contained within this book. It's so creepy, guys. Oh my god. It's also just like Super Mario Bros. 3, which nobody ever acknowledges because Miyamoto silences everybody who acknowledges this. This is my last stream because Miyamoto will silence me. It was, I remember, the 13th day of April 1920 that the first government lethal chamber was established on the south side of Washington Square between Wooster Street and South 5th Avenue. The block, which had formerly consisted of a lot of shabby old buildings used as cafes and restaurants for foreigners, had been acquired by the government in the winter of 1898. The French and Italian cafes and restaurants were torn down. The whole block was enclosed by a gilded iron railing and converted into a lovely garden with lawns, flowers, and fountains. In the center of the garden stood a small, white building, severely classical in architecture and surmounted by thickets of flowers. 6 Ionic columns supported the roof, and a single door was of bronze. A splendid marble group of the Fates stood before the door, the work of a young American sculptor, Boris Yvain, who had died in Paris when only 23 years old. Queen in Black reads The King in Yellow. Oh, I'm changing it! I'm changing the stream title to that. That's awesome. Time Zombie, you're so smart. I will, of course, add capitalization, as is my nature. There we go. Very, very, very good title, actually.
Egg.
Oh, and Time Zombie, thank you also for your egg. There we go. The inauguration ceremonies were in progress as I crossed a University Place and entered the square. I like the name University Place. What's this place? Well, it's where the university is, so... I threaded my way through the silent throng of spectators, but was stopped at 4th Street by a cordon of police. A regiment of United States Lancers were drawn up in a hollow square around the lethal chamber. On a raised tribune facing Washington Park stood the governor of New York, and behind him were grouped the mayor of New York and Brooklyn, the inspector general of police, Boop, and commandant of the state troops, Colonel Livingston, military aide to the President of the United States, General Blount, commanding at Governor's Island, Major General Hamilton, commanding the garrison of New York and Brooklyn, Admiral Buffby of the Fleet of the North River, Surgeon General Lansford, the staff of the National Free Hospital, Senators Weiss and Franklin of New York, and the Commissioner of Public Works. The Tribune was surrounded by a squadron of hussars of the National Guard. The governor was finishing his reply to the short speech of the Surgeon General. I heard him say, "The laws prohibiting suicide and providing punishment for any attempt at self-destruction may have been repealed. The government has seen fit to acknowledge the right of man to end an existence which may have become intolerable to him, through physical suffering or mental despair. It is believed that the community will be benefited by the removal of such people from their midst. Since the passage of this law, the number of suicides in the United States has not decreased.
Now the government has determined to establish a lethal chamber in every city, town, and village in the country. It appears to be seen whether or not that class of human creatures from whose responding ranks new victims of self-destruction fall daily will accept the relief thus provided.
He paused and turned to the white lethal chamber. The silence in the street was absolute.
There is painless death awaits him who can no longer bear the sorrows of this life. If death is welcome, let him seek it there.
Then quickly turned to the military aide of the president's household. He said,
I declare the lethal chamber open.
and again facing the vast crowd, he cried in a clear voice,
Citizens of New York and of the United States of America, through me, the government declares the lethal chamber to be open.
The solemn hush was broken by a sharp cry of command. The squadron of hussars filed after the governor's carriage. The lancers wheeled and formed along Fifth Avenue to wait for the commandant of the garrison, and the mounted police followed them. I left the crowd to gape and stare at the white marble death chamber, and crossing South Fifth Avenue, walked along the western side of that thoroughfare to Bleecker Street. That's not like a street that is Bleecker, that's the name of it. It's Bleecker Street. What a fitting name, though. Then I turned to the right and stopped before a dingy shop which bore the sign Hauberk, armorer. I glanced in at the doorway and saw Hauberk busy in his little shop at the end of the hall. He looked up and, catching sight of me, cried in his deep, hearty voice,
Come in, Mr. Castaigne!
Constance, his daughter, rose to meet me as I crossed the threshold and held out her pretty hand, but I saw the blush of disappointment on her cheeks and knew that it was another Castaigne she had expected, my cousin Louise. I smiled at her confusion and complimented her on the banner she was embroidering from a colored plate. Old Hauberk sat riveting the worn greaves of some ancient suit of armor, and the ting-ting-ting of his... Oh my god, there's lightning outside. Damn. And the ting-ting-ting of his little hammer sounded pleasantly in the quaint shop. Presently he dropped his hammer and fussed about for a moment with a tiny wrench. The soft clash of the mail sent a thrill of pleasure through me. I loved to hear the music of steel brushing against steel, the mellow shock of the mallet on thigh pieces, and the jingle of chain armor. That was the only reason I went to see Hauberk. He had never interested me personally, nor did Constance, except for the fact that her being in love with Louise. This did occupy my attention, and sometimes even kept me awake at night, but I knew in my heart that all would come right, and that I should arrange their future as I expected to arrange that of my kind doctor, John Archer. Didn't you intend to, like, get back at the doctor? You're gonna kill your cousin or something? What's going on there? I mean, you have got mad, so... Honestly, for a guy who went mad, seems to be doing pretty well so far. However, I should never have troubled myself about visiting them just then, had it not been, as I say, that the music of the tinkling hammer had for me this strong fascination. I would sit for hours listening and listening, and when a stray sunbeam struck the inlaid steel, the sensation it gave me was almost too keen to endure. My eyes would become fixed, dilating with a pleasure that stretched every nerve almost to breaking, until some movement of the old armorer cut off the ray of sunlight. Then, still thrilling secretly, I leaned back and listened again to the sound of the polishing rag. Swish, swish, rubbing rust from the rivets. You know, we all need a special interest. Enemies to lovers, MLM Doctor, X-Mad person, for real. For real, I agree. My eyes would become fixed. Oh no, wait, got that? Constance worked with the embroidery over her knees, now and then pausing to examine more closely the pattern in the colored plate from the Metropolitan Museum. Who is this for? I asked. Hauberk explained that in addition to the treasure of armor in the Metropolitan Museum, of which he had been appointed armorer, he also had charge of several collections belonging to rich amateurs. This was the missing greave of a famous suit, which a client of his had traced to a little shop in Paris on the Q-U-A-I space D''O-R-S-A-Y. It is a pair street that parallels the south bank of this Seine River. Yeah, La Seine. Yeah, La Seine. That's what it's called. Quoi d'orsay? Don't speak French. He, Hauberk, had negotiated for and secured the Grieve, and now the suit was complete. He laid down his hammer and read me the history of the suit, traced since 1450 from owner to owner until it was acquired by Thomas Stainbridge. When his superb collection was sold, this client of Hauberk's bought the suit, and since then the search for the missing Grieve had been pushed until it was, almost by accident, located in Paris. Did you continue to search so persistently without any certainty of the Grieve still being in existence? I demanded.
Of course,
He replied coolly. Then, for the first time, I took a personal interest in Hauberk. It was worth something to you, I ventured.
No.
He replied, laughing.
My pleasure is in finding it was my reward.
Have you no ambition to be rich? I asked, smiling.
My one ambition is to be the best armorer in the world,
He answered gravely. Constance asked me if I had seen the ceremonies at the Lethal Chamber. She herself had noticed cavalry passing up Broadway that morning, and had wished to see the inauguration. But her father wanted the banner finished, and she had stayed at his request. Did you see your cousin, Mr. Castaigne, there? Oh, did you see your cousin, Mr. Castaigne, there? She asked, with the slightest tremor of her soft eyelashes. No, I replied carelessly. Louisa's regiment is maneuvering out in Westchester County. I rose and picked up my hat and cane.
Are you going upstairs to see the lunatic again?
Laughed old Hauberk. If Hauberk knew how I loathed the word lunatic, he would never use it in my presence. It rouses certain feelings within me which I do not care to explain. It's probably because you are mad. Yeah, Louise is a boy. No, Yuri, I know. I figured. I guess I'm saying Louise wrong. It's Louis? It's Louis. I'm saying it wrong. My bad. It's Louis. He's a boy. For now! I can try changing the pronouns to be feminine. I'm just gonna try. I'm just gonna see if I can do that. I'm just gonna keep saying Louise and change pronouns and such if I can. However, I answered him quietly. I think I shall drop in and see Mr. Wilde for a moment or two. Poor fellow, said Constance, with a shake of the head. It must be hard to live alone year after year, poor, crippled, and almost demented. It is very good of you, Mr. Castaigne, to visit him as often as you do.
I think he is vicious,
observed Hauberk, beginning again with his hammer.
I listened to the golden tinkle on...
Oh, no, wait. I listened to the golden tinkle of the Grieve plates, which he had finished. When he had finished, I replied, No, he is not vicious, nor is he in the least demented. His mind is a wonder chamber, from which he can extract treasures that you and I would give years of our lives to acquire. Hauberk laughed. I continued a little impatiently. He knows history as no one else would know it. Nothing, however trivial, escapes his search, and his memory is so absolute, so precise in detail, that were it known in New York that such a man existed, the people could not honor him enough.
Nonsense,
muttered Hauberk, searching on the floor for a fallen rivet. Is it nonsense? I asked, managing to suppress what I felt. Is it nonsense when he says that the Tessets and Crussards, which are thigh guards, of the enameled suit of armor commonly known as the Prince's Emblazoned, can be found among a mass of rusty theatrical properties, broken stoves, and rag pickers' refuse in a garret in Pell Street? Hauberk's hammer fell to the ground, but he picked it up and asked, with a great deal of calm, how I knew that the Tessets and left Crussards were missing from the Prince's Emblazoned. I did not know, until Mr. Wilde mentioned it to me the other day. He said they were in the garret of 998th Pell Street. Nonsense! He cried, but I noticed his hand trembling under his leather apron. Is this nonsense too? I asked pleasantly. Is it nonsense when Mr. Wilde continually speaks of you as the Marquis of Avonshire and of Miss Constance. I did not finish, for Constance had started to her feet, with terror written on every feature. Hawberk looked at me and slowly smoothed his leather apron.
That is impossible,
He observed.
Mr. Wilde may know a great many things.
About armor, for instance? And the Princess Emblazoned? I interposed, smiling.
Yes,
He continued, slowly.
about armor also, maybe, but he is wrong in regard to the Marquis of Avonshire, who, as you know, killed his wife's traducer years ago and went to Australia, where he did not long survive his wife.
Mr. Wilde is wrong, murmured Constance. Her lips were blanched, but her voice was sweet and calm. Let us agree, if you please, that in this one circumstance, Mr. Wilde is wrong, I said. What's going on? I'm liking this a lot. It's going in a fun direction. So the blacksmith, he took on a new identity, and this guy living above him, I assume, if I understand correctly. Oh yeah, I will take a sippy. Thank you very much, Lucy. He knows about it somehow. And now our main character knows about it. I'm guessing that the guy he's going to meet has also read The King in Yellow. Oh, I will do a stretchy imposter check, thank you. Okay. Also, yeah, if The King in Yellow makes you not transphobic, it should be required reading. Yeah, I mean, you know, you might go insane from it, but at least you're not transphobic. The King in Yellow book club meetings go hard. Usually someone gets stabbed. I don't think it's that kind of nightmare or that kind of madness based on what we've seen so far. Okay. So, even though this is a short story, it has chapters. And this is chapter 2, which does not have a separate name. It is still just the repair of reputations. Oh, do you think the reputation that's being repaired is the blacksmith's? I climbed the 3 dilapidated flights of stairs, which actually, no, we have 2 minutes until break, so we're just gonna do that first, actually. That's probably smarter. So, go ahead and do all your E's in chat right now, even though they won't be, actually, I think they will be thrown at little Gauntlet Queen here. No? Man, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So annoying. Anyway, I like this. I'm into it. I think it's very, very, very intriguing so far. I hope you guys are enjoying the stream so far. We will be taking a 20 or so minute break for me to do my Esther gel. If you guys have any medicine you have to take, please remember to do so. We'll be playing some music, of course, the spooky music, not this, or like the spooky playlist with more upbeat music, not just this ambience. 20 or so minutes. If you guys have any medicine you have to take, please remember to do so. Get some snackies, stretch your leggies, and make sure to stay hydrated. Alright, I will see you guys soon. Why isn't it throwing? Hold on. Oh, that's why it wasn't throwing. It's because I hadn't actually launched tits. That makes sense. Yeah. Okay, try again. Try again, gang. Put some more E in chat. It should work this time. I kinda miss most of the stream so far. Will there be a short recap on return? Yeah, I'll probably give a little recap, yes. So I forgot her tits at one point, and don't laugh, just tell her she's cool. How could I forget? They're right there. I can see them. Anyway. Yay, it works now. You can pelt her. Okay. Ooh. Another ray for the diagonal. Oh, it's like the ray that's being... I get it. The ray that's being shot from Amy. Yeah, that makes sense now. I'm gonna alternate them. Should have caught that sooner. No, that's funny. She doesn't get hurt. She's empathic to the Gauntlet Queen. Yeah. Having a nightmare about school, but instead of forgetting your pants, you forget your tits. What a horrible... That's like a trans femme nightmare. That is Pinocchio, as it turns out. Okay, yeah, let's do a break, 20 or so minutes. I'll see you guys soon. See you guys, see, bye.
don't feel safe.
What the? I definitely pressed the unmute button. I don't know why that happened. Anyway, I said, hi, I'm back. I said, hello, I'm back, I suppose, if we want to be real pedantic about it. Give me just a moment to bump the socials, which I did. So now I'm putting on all my accessories. I'll get it in a moment, Kirka. So I started putting up my phone and accidentally pulled the internet cord out of my computer. Oops. I then spent the rest of the time until now not realizing that and trying to work out where my internet had gone. So can you start from basically the start, please? I hate that it happened for you, Jody. No. The accessories are important. Without them, I'll go mad. They are my anchors, as it were, you know? They're enchanted and such.
Egg.
I'll get that egg as well. Also,
Hi.
Maven's egg from a little bit earlier. And hello, Crimson Flesher. If you guys are just joining us, I'm putting on a bunch of bracelets and such. Aside from that, we've been reading The King in Yellow, which has been, aside from some questionable things at the very start, been very good. I've been liking it a lot. Can't believe you won't accommodate me and only me at everyone else's expense. Unbelievable. Listen, Jody, If it was so important to you to catch up on the book up to this point, you should have just gone to the start of the stream, which you can do, and watched it two times speed, which I don't think you can do. But that's not my problem. I want to say the outfit is fucking incredible. I need to get me some wrist gloves like that. Everyone does, because it's really good. Also, look. It says Gauntlet Queen. That's how you know. That's how I know. I forget otherwise. Again, need the bracelets or the madness gets me. This fucking song is from Lego 2K Drive, which I was not expecting to have such good music, but oh my god, it is so good. Watch the stream in 2 separate windows. Yeah, you know, it'll enhance the madness if you watch both the stuff I already did and the live stuff right now at the same time. It'll be good. Can we pull every reset or not? No. We cannot. Because I don't wanna. I love the Lego racing games. Is 2K Drive any good? Yes, it is. Lego 2K Drive is very enjoyable so far. It very much feels like a proper sequel in a lot of ways. Especially the car building, which is insanely good. You can make such fucking crazy shit with it. It's really good. And it's more like Lego Racers 2 than 1. So it's got an overworld. So it's got an overworld, and then the races are built into the overworld. So you don't have as much like unique set pieces as you do in 1, but they do still like do a good job of having memorable race tracks, I'd say, given this limitation. And it's got a monkey mechanic girl called Sunny Monkey, and I love her. Shut up, Yori. Anyway, no, it's really good. I like it a lot. And this track just plays during 1 or 2 missions where you smash up some skeletons. It's really funny to me. Yeah, so let's get to reading. First I put the music back on. So, if you were only just joining us and you were not here for the first chapter of the story of The King in Yellow, The Repairer of Reputations, because The King in Yellow is a collection of short horror stories, by the way, if you don't know. If you're not here for that, it's buffering. Ow. Monkey say monkey do, or actually monkey say robot do, because robot in love. It's true. I love mechanic girls. Sorry. Chapter 1, we're introduced to the United States of America, which has just had entered an age of prosperity, supposedly after a bunch of war shit. And they have just introduced the lethal chamber, or the death chamber, where you can go. Merry Dreams, thank you very much for subscribing. Where you can go to essentially get euthanized. The protagonist of this story fell off his horse at one point. These two things will surely be related. Can you guys stop saying monkey in chat? Mel, stop flustering the road girl with thoughts of being close to a cool mechanic lady. You are doing that. The protagonist fell off a horse a while ago, and bumped his head, and then the doctor was like, "I'm putting you in an asylum, because there might be something wrong with your noggin." And he was like, "No, no, there's not. I'm perfectly fine. I'm doing okay. I'm gonna read The King in Yellow," which he regrets. The King in Yellow is then described to us as a book that, or it's a play. It's a written play. It's a writing of a play. You know how you can read a play? And anyone who reads it goes insane. It doesn't do anything. It is not described to us why yet. It is like everybody tries to ban it, even though they can't really find reasons to, because it doesn't do anything. It doesn't break any laws in its writing or anything like that. But for some reason, everybody who reads it goes mad and they want to ban it. He read it, he started reading it, then he wanted to stop reading it, he threw it in the fire, but then immediately wanted to take it out again and continue to read it, and read it over and over and over again, laughing hysterically as he did so. And then he was released from the insane asylum. Hooray! So the doctor was like, "I guess you're fine." And he was like, "Yeah, I fucking know that, dude. I'll get you back for all the money that I have to pay you now." So then some time passes, and then he goes to see the opening of the death chamber, and he's like, "Yep, all right." There's a whole list of military officials that were there. For some reason, we get like each of them named and their position. It's very weird. And then he's like, well, he keeps walking and he goes to an armorer, like a blacksmith who's making armor. Even though this is like Victorian times or some shit, it's like not even Victorian times. I think it's like the transition of the centuries from 1800s to 1900s. Edwardian times, very good. Yes, he's making armor to fit private collections as well as museums. So our protagonist, whose name we're certain to hear again, Mr. Cambridge or some shit, Cambane. He goes there because he loves listening to the tinking of the hammer on the armor and stuff. Metal on metal, he loves that sound, which, you know, can kind of relate, but still he seems to have a special interest in it. A special interest. Also, I'll get any eggs and such after I've done the recap. He goes there, the blacksmith has a daughter. I think it's a daughter. Maybe it's, I don't know. I think it's a daughter. And she's very excited when the blacksmith calls his name, because she's like, "Oh my god, girl, we're making it a girl, we're gender bending it, the girl that I'm in love with." But no, that's the main character's cousin. Oops. Louise. And then so he's like, "Oh, that's not me," and she's like, "Ah, fuck." That's he sits there for a while, listens to the stuff. And then he's like, "Well, I'm gonna go up to the guy that's upstairs. He's living in the upstairs apartment or something, I think, if I'm understanding correctly." And the blacksmith's like, "You shouldn't do that, because that guy is like a lunatic and demented and crippled and such." Is really very sad. And the protagonist goes like, "No, he's the smartest fucking guy ever. He knows everything in the world." Yeah, we're making a Yuri. And then Lex is like, "What are you talking about?" And then our protagonist goes, "Well, he knows where those armor pieces that you lost are." And the guy's like, "How do you know that?" And then the protagonist goes, "He also knows that you are actually this Marquise that ran away after killing his wife's his wife was having an affair or something, and he killed the affair haver, the other end of it." And he's like, "No, that's not true, that's not me, you should fucking go." He's denying it. The girl also gets really uncomfortable. And that's just about where we left off. It's very interesting. If he loves that sound, he should check out Signalis OST by Cicada Sirens and 1000 Eyes. I mean, who knows? Maybe the soundtrack was inspired by that part of the book. You know? I'm baffled by why Sucker for Love made this book an anime girl. What? Oh, it's that Lovecraftian dating game. Huh. Okay. I mean, if I'm... Okay. Well, okay, I don't know. We don't really know who the King in Yellow is yet, or if the King in Yellow is even a person. I think so, based on what we've read about it so far. Like a person in the book, at least, or like in the play that exists within this book. It's just like, I don't think this counts as like a monster girl, right? Because this is just like a person. So I don't think this appeases monster fuckers or monster likers at all. It's just like a person. Anyway, girls will drive you insane. So true, and it's so good when they do. I accept it every day. Anyway, let me just get to some eggies. We got quite a few of those. Thank you to... Whoops. Okay, so out of habit, I dragged the egg onto my
Egg.
second monitor, which is over there, which is usually where you guys are. Because you know how Gauntlet Queen is like looking that way, but then when she's looking at you guys at chat, she's looking at this, like this. It's because that's where the chat is. But now I'm looking at the camera, so I'm looking at you guys. So right now I have everything here. So I dragged it onto the video. I dragged it onto the video where it's fine. Anyway, so okay, now we start with Yuzu Adagio. Then we've got Mermaid Dreams, Sonic Cam, Crimson Flasher, Soda Vampire, and AOL, who totally deserves a shout out if possible, by the way. Another raid, the Ray in yellow. Okay, yes, we've got two more of those. Flip. And then another one. There we go. I'm about to be blowed the fuck up, I think. Actually, I should totally rearrange these a little bit since they are supposed to be following the direction of my fingy. It's a little bit better. I'm still gonna get blown up. I'm there. I'm sitting on chat. You're sitting on chat. You're having a picnic on chat. How wonderful. What a delight. Ow. Wait, that's not me. I'm not getting hit. What? Pavlov. Big Iron Juliet, thank you very much for the egg. Rays do kind of look like a Poke, actually. Anyway, we now start with Chapter 2 of The Repairer of Reputations. Which, I assume the Repairer is the guy who is insane that we're going to meet, and the reputation in question is the blacksmiths. He didn't make a sound? It should have. I can't imagine it wouldn't have made a sound, actually. What about Ease? Do you guys hear Ease? Oh. That's odd. Why didn't you hear anything? Wow. I don't know why you guys... Why... I don't know why. Well... I'm not gonna worry about that right now. I climbed the three dilapidated flights of stairs, which I had so often climbed before, and knocked at a small door at the end of the corridor. Mr. Wilde opened the door, and I walked in. Mr. Wilde being the guy that knew all the things. When he had double-locked the door and pushed a heavy chest against it, he came and sat down beside me, peering up into my face with his little, light-colored eyes. Half a dozen new scratches covered his nose and cheeks, and the silver wires which supported his artificial ears had become displaced. I thought I had never seen him so hideously fascinating. He had no ears. The artificial ones, which now stood out at an angle from the fine wire, were his one weakness. They were made of wax and painted a shell pink, but the rest of his face was yellow. He might better have reveled in the luxury of some artificial fingers for his left hand, which was absolutely fingerless, but it seemed to cause him no inconvenience, and he was satisfied with his wax ears. He was very small, scarcely higher than a child of 10, but his arms were magnificently developed, and his thighs were as thick as any athlete's. Still, the most remarkable thing about Mr. Wilde was that a man of his marvelous intelligence and knowledge should have such a head. It was flat and pointed, like the heads of many of those unfortunates whom people imprison in asylums for the weak-minded. Many called him insane, but I knew him to be as sane as I was. Well, you did tell us a whole paragraph, a whole, like, shockingly in-depth and, detailed paragraph about how insane reading The King in Yellow made you, but that's okay. I do not deny that he was eccentric. The mania he had for keeping that cat and teasing her until she flew at his face like a demon, oh, that's where the scratches are from, okay, was certainly eccentric. I never could understand why he kept the creature, nor what pleasure he found in shutting himself up in his room with this surly, vicious beast. I remember once glancing up from the manuscript I was studying by the light of some tallow dips, and seeing Mr. Wilde squatting motionless on his high chair, his eyes fairly blazing with excitement, while the cat, which had risen from her place before the stove, came creeping across the floor right at him. Before I could move, she flattened her belly to the ground, crouched, trembled, and sprang into his face. Howling and foaming, they rolled over and over on the floor, scratching and clawing until the cat screamed and fled under the cabinet, and Mr. Wilde turned over on his back, his limbs contracting and curling up like the legs of a dying spider. He was eccentric. Mr. Wilde had climbed into his high chair, and, after studying my face, picked up a dog-eared ledger and opened it.
Henry B. Matthews, he read. Bookkeeper with Weissett & Company, dealer in church ornaments. Called April 3rd, reputation damaged on the racetrack, known as a welcher. Reputation to be repaired by August 1st. Retainer $5.
He turned the page and rang his fingerless knuckles down the closely written columns.
P. Green Dusenberry, Minister of the Gospel, Fair Beach, New Jersey. Reputation damaged in a Bowery. To be repaired as soon as possible. Retainer $100.
He coughed and added,
Called April 6th.
Then you are not in need of money, Mr. Wilde, I inquired.
Listen.
He coughed again.
Mrs. C.
Okay, I can never remember this. When it is MRS, is that Mrs.? Or is that Miss? No, like Miss has to be the one that's just MISS. It's Mrs. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, alright, okay.
Mrs. C. Hamilton Chester of Chester Park, New York City. Called April 7th. Reputation damaged at Dieppe, France. To be repaired by October 1st. Retainer, $500.
Yeah, I had it. I'm so smart. I'm awesome. Yay.
Note, C. Hamilton Chester, Captain, USS Avalanche. Ordered home from South Sea Squadron, October 1st.
Well, I said, the profession of a repairer of reputation is lucrative. His colorless eyes sought mine. Who's saying this? This is so much. I think this is him. This is a repairer.
I only wanted to demonstrate that I was correct. You said it was impossible to succeed as a repairer of reputations, that even if I did succeed in certain cases, it would cost me more than I would gain by it. Today, I have 500 men in my employ.
Damn, okay.
Which are poorly paid, but who pursue the work with an enthusiasm which possibly may be born of fear. These men enter every shade and grade of society. Some even are pillars of the most exclusive social temples. Others are the prop and pride of the financial world. Still others hold undisputed sway among the fancy and the talent. I choose them at my leisure from those who reply to my advertisements. It is easy enough, they are all cowards. I could treble the number in 20 days if I wish. Treble meaning triple. I haven't pointed this out yet, but this comes with little notes at the bottom. Hold on. Little notes at the bottom of the page. Footnotes. That's what those are called. Which is very nice. So you see, those who have in their keeping the reputations of their fellow citizens, I have in my pay.
They may turn on you, I suggested. He rubbed his thumb over his cropped ears and adjusted the wax substitutes.
I think not,
He murmured thoughtfully.
I seldom have to apply the whip, and then only once. Besides, they like their wages.
How do you apply the whip? I demanded. His face for a moment was awful to look at. His eyes dwindled to a pair of green sparks.
I invite them to come and have a little chat with me,
he said in a soft voice. A knock at the door interrupted him, and his face resumed its amiable expression.
Who is it?
He inquired. Mr. Staylette was the answer.
Come tomorrow,
replied Mr. Wilde. Impossible, began the other, but was silenced by a sort of bark from Mr. Wilde.
Come tomorrow,
he repeated. We heard somebody move away from the door and turned a corner by the stairway. I think he should become the king in bed and get a good night's rest. I think that would fix him. I do also, they don't specify, and I don't think it's what they meant, but I do imagine him like perching on the chair. You know, like,
I know all the things. Little Bessie tripped and fell with her face in mud and became the laughingstock of the entire elementary school. It must be fixed by her birthday next Tuesday.
He's sitting gay. He's sitting gay. Who is that? I asked.
Arnold Staylette, owner and editor-in-chief of the great New York Daily.
He drummed on the ledger with his fingerless hand, adding,
I pay him very badly, but he thinks it is a good bargain.
Arnold Staylette, I repeated, amazed.
Yes,
said Mr. Wilde with a self-satisfied cough. The cat, which had entered the room as he spoke, hesitated, looked up at him and snarled. He climbed down from the chair and squatted on the floor. So, yeah, okay, if he's squatting on the floor, he was also definitely squatting on the chair, right? I assume? And he climbed down from it. This dude's squatting. This dude's sitting gay on the chair. Took the creature into his arms and caressed her. The cat ceased snarling and presently began a loud purring which seemed to increase in timbre as he stroked her. Where are the notes? I asked. He pointed to the table, and for the 100th time I picked up the bundle of manuscripts entitled the Imperial Dynasty of America. One by one, I studied the well-worn pages, worn only by my own handling, and although I knew all by heart from the beginning, when from Carcosa, the Hyades, Hester, and Edelbaran to Castaigne, Louise de Calvados, born December 19th, 1877, I read it with an eager, rapt attention, pausing to repeat parts of it out loud, and dwelling especially on Hildred de Calvados, only son of Hildred Castaigne and Edith Landis Castaigne, first in succession, etc., etc. When I finished... Okay, so this is interesting. So first of all, our main character's last name is Castaigne. And this mentions Carcosa, which is was first mentioned to us in the excerpt from The King in Yellow that we got to read before this chapter of the book, or this short story in the book. So that's interesting. I think, if I remember correctly, Carcosa is like a fictional island kingdom that was featured in that comes from a different story, like a different book altogether, different writer, real life writer, that is to say. And Robert W. Chambers, the writer of The King in Yellow, used the name. I don't think Carcosa is a real place. And yet there's a story about Carcosa that then also mentions the family Castaigne, which is our main character's last name. So that's interesting. Also, hi Sharksighted! How are you doing? Hi Shay. Good to see you. And very good giving Shay a shout out, well deserved. I hope you're doing good. Sorry, my nose is a little bit itchy. When I finished, Mr. Wilde nodded and coughed. Speaking of your legitimate ambition, he said, how do Constance and Louise get along? She loves her, I replied simply. The cat on his knee suddenly turned and struck at his eyes, and he flung her off and climbed onto the chair opposite me. And Dr. Archer, but that's a matter you can settle any time you wish, he added. Okay, let's see. Okay, there is a little footnote for when from Carcosa to Hyades Hester. Another name borrowed from Ambrose Bierce. Okay, so that's the original writer. While referred to here as location, Hester is a god of shepherds from the 1893 short story Haita the Shepherd, also found in the collection Tales of Soldiers and Civilians, and Can Such Things Be? Surviving the heat like everyone else. Yeah, it's intense. Yes, I replied. Dr. Archer can wait, but it is time I saw my cousin Louise. It is time, he repeated. Then he took another ledger from the table and ran over the leaves rapidly. We are now in communication with 10,000 men, he muttered. We can count on 100,000 within the first 28 hours, and in 48 hours the state will rise en masse. The country follows the state, and the portion that will not, I mean California and Southwest, might better never have been inhabited. I shall not send them the yellow sign. The what? You're not gonna send them the what? The yellow sign is kept, like, the Y and the S, they're capitalized. Like a name. The blood rushed to my head, but I only answered, a new broom sweeps clean. The ambition of Caesar and Napoleon pales before that which could not rest until it had seized the minds of men and controlled even their unborn thoughts, said Mr. Wilde. You are speaking of the King in Yellow, I groaned with a shudder. He is a king whom emperors have served. I am content to serve him, I replied. Mr. Wilde said, rubbing his ears with his crippled hand. Perhaps Constance does not love him, I suggested, or I don't know who this is about. If this is about the Doctor, or Louise, who we are making a girl, or the King in Yellow now. I started to reply, but a sudden burst of military music from the street below drowned my voice. The 20th Dragoon Regiment, formerly in garrison at Mount St. Vincent, was... Actually, it's kind of... She did not love him at this time. Yellow signs you... No, I've been yellow signed! This means things that I don't understand. If it is kind of... Because I hear the sentence... Perhaps Constance does not love him. It's very intentionally vague, right? It is intentionally meant to be a question to us of like, is he talking about Louise or, you know, Lewis, about Dr. Archer, or about the King in Yellow? And it's kind of funny that we're ruining that, because now it's like, well, can't be about Louise, you know? Like we are actually, by being like, we're gonna make this Yuri for fun, we've accidentally broken a little bit of the narrative here. Anyway, the 20th Dragoon Regiment, formerly in garrison at Mount St. Vincent, was returning from the maneuvers in Winchester County to its new barracks on East Washington Square. It was my cousin's regiment. Yo, she is a woman and she's in the army in the early 1900s. That's crazy, dude. Good bet for her. That sucks for her. She's in the army. Still works if Dr. Wilde is a transphobe. That's true. Is he a doctor? I thought it was just Mr. Wilde. Anyway, I guess it still works if he's just... Then I guess if Louise is trans, it also checks out that she's in the army. They were a fine set of fellows in their pale blue, tight-fitting jackets, jaunty busbies, which are tall fur hats with a colored cloth flap hanging down on the right-hand side and often a plume on the top, worn by soldiers of certain regiments of hussars and artillerymen. And wide riding breeches with a double yellow stripe, onto which their limbs seemed molded. Every other squadron was armed with lances, from the metal points of which fluttered yellow and white pennons. The band passed, playing the regiment march. Then came the colonel and staff, the horses crowding and trampling the crowds, while their heads bobbed in unison, and the pennons fluttered from their lance points. The troopers, who rode with the beautiful English seat, looked brown as berries from their bloodless campaign among the farms of Winchester, or Westchester, and the music of their sabers against the stirrups, and the jingle of the spurs and carbines was delightful to me. Again, our main character loves the sound of metal on metal. I saw Louise riding with her squadron. She was as beautiful... No, I'm just gonna say as handsome, I'm gonna change that part. She was as beautiful enough... No, fuck, I did it anyway. God damn it. She was as handsome an officer as I ever have seen. Mr. Wilde, who had mounted a chair by the window, saw him too, but said nothing. Louise turned and looked straight at Hallberg Schupp as she passed, and I could see the flush on her brown cheeks. I think Constance must have been at the window. When the last troopers had clattered by, and the last pennons vanished into South 5th Avenue, Mr. Wilde clambered out of his chair and dragged the chest away from the door. "Yes," he said, "it is time that you saw your cousin Louise." He unlocked the door, and I picked up my hat and stick and stepped into the corridor. The stairs were dark. Groping about, I set my foot on something soft which snarled and spit, and I aimed a murderous blow at the cat. Hello. Rude. But my cane shivered to splinters against the balustrade, and the beast scurried back into Mr. Wilde's room. Passing Hallberg's door again, I saw him still at work on the armor, but I did not stop and stepped out into Bleecker Street, which, again, for those who weren't here before break, is the name of the street, but it's a very cool name for a story like this. I just like to point that out because I think Bleecker Street is a really cool name. I followed it to Worcester, skirted the grounds of the lethal chamber, Again, that's the euthanasia place. And crossing Washington Park, went straight to my room in the Benedict. Here I lunched comfortably, read the Herald and the Meteor, and finally went to the steel safe in my bedroom and set the time combination. The 3 3/4 minutes which it is necessary to wait while the time lock is opening are to me golden moments. From the instant I set the combination to the moment when I grasp the knobs and swing back the solid steel doors, I live in an ecstasy of expectation. Those moments must be like moments passed in paradise. I know what I am to find at the end of the time limit. I know what the massive safe holds secure for me alone, and the exquisite pleasure of waiting is hardly enhanced when the safe opens and I lift from its velvet crown a diadem, which is an ornamental headband worn by monarchs and others as a symbol of sovereignty. A diadem. Diadem. It's a diadem in Dutch, but I assume that's not how it's pronounced in English. Diadem. Okay, cool. Diaphene. Diadem. A diadem of purest gold, blazing with diamonds. I do this every day, and yet the joy of waiting and at last touching again the diadem only seems to increase as the days pass. It is a diadem fit for a king among kings, an emperor among emperors. The king in yellow might scorn it, but it shall be worn by his loyal servant. This is so wild, dude. I am super into this. I was not expecting the first story to be about a guy who's in a cult that worships the king in yellow, who's from a play that they read. But is he though? Maybe he's not. This is so good. They got diadems in Guild Wars 2. So true, I assume. Yeah, they do. There was more Ray for the Ray. I'm feeling a little I feel like someone's kind of like shooting at my spotlight here, you know? Bleecker Street next to Even Cedar Avenue and Melancholy Hill. Dude, Melancholy Hill is one of my favorite Gorillaz songs. I love it. Also, yes, the King Yellow did feel safe. Drama. I also don't feel safe with this story. It's building. These vibes are uncomfortable. As someone who has to use a timed save at work, yeah, this guy is insane. That was established on like page 2. But yes. Also, hi Daya. Hi. You were mentioned. This is so cool, so interesting. Like, of course there are other stories where there was a character that, from our perspective, from like, who is not the protagonist. So then from the protagonist and thus our perspective, they seem, for the most part, probably for like most of the story, sane, perfectly sane. Like there's nothing weird about them. They might be a little bit eccentric, but they're like fine. And then it's only revealed near the end, the big twist, that they are actually far gone, but they are still able to maintain a facade of normalcy. This is about that guy. That's really cool. Like we see it all. We see him acting normal and talking normal with people, and then, but also he does so much weird shit, and it's like, it's really good. I like it a lot. I held it in my arms until the alarm in the safe rang harshly, and then tenderly, proudly, he doesn't even put it on his head, he doesn't even feel good about wearing it. Then tenderly, proudly, I placed it and shut the steel doors. I walked slowly back into my study, which faces Washington Square, and leaned on the windowsill. The afternoon sun poured into my windows, and a gentle breeze stirred the branches of the elms and maples in the park, now covered with buds and tender foliage. A flock of pigeons circled about the tower of the memorial church, sometimes alighting on the purple tiled floor, sometimes wheeling downward to the lotus fountain in front of the marble arch. The gardeners were busy with the flower beds around the fountain, and the freshly turned earth swelled sweet and spicy. Smelt, not swelled. A lawnmower, drawn by a fat white horse, clinked across the green sward, and watering cats poured showers of spray over carts. Man, what the fuck is going on? Watering carts, poured showers of spray over the asphalt drivers. Around the statue of Peter Stuyvesant, which in 1897 had replaced the monstrosity supposed to represent Garibaldi, children played in the spring sunshine, and nurse girls wheeled elaborate baby carriages with a reckless disregard for the pasty-faced occupants, which could probably be explained by the presence of half a dozen trimmed dragoon troopers tranquilly lolling on the benches. Through the trees, the Washington Memorial Arch glistened like silver in the sunshine, and beyond, on the eastern extremity of the square, the grey stone barracks of the dragoons and the white granite artillery stables were alive with color and motion. I looked at the lethal chamber on the corner of the square opposite. A few curious people still lingered about the gilded iron railing, but inside the grounds the paths were deserted. I watched the fountains ripple and sparkle. The sparrows had already found this new bathing nook, and the basins were covered with the dusty, feathered little things. 2 or 3 white peacocks picked their way across the lawns, and a drab-colored pigeon sat so motionless on the arm of one of the fates, those are statues that were put here also, that it seemed to be a part of the sculptured stone. I like that he's not sure if there are 2 or 3 white peacocks. Are they like moving that like rapidly that you can't tell? As I turned carelessly away, a slight commotion in the group of curious loiterers around the gates attracted my attention. A young man had entered and was advancing with nervous strides along the gravel path which leads to the bronze door of the lethal chamber. He paused a moment before the fates, and as he raised his head to those 3 mysterious faces, the pigeon rose from its sculptured perch, circled about for a moment, and wheeled to the east. The young man pressed his hand to his face, and then, with an undeniable gesture, sprang up the marble steps. The bronze doors closed behind him, and half an hour later the loiterers slouched away, and the frightened pigeon returned to its perch in the arms of fate. Okay. What happens to the... So... Assuming, you know, you get euthanized in there, like, does someone do it? What happens to the body? This is so effective. Like, there's this guy that we're following who is part of this cult because he read a play called The King in Yellow, and that's interesting and stuff. But they also introduced the death chamber, and they also very effectively build up the suspense with this thing. This is I love this. This is so good. Where was I? Here. I put on my hat and went out into the park for a little walk before dinner. As I crossed the central driveway, a group of officers passed, ACAP, and one of them called out, "Hello, Hildred," and came back to shake hands with me. It was my cousin. No, I didn't know. Okay, hold on, let me go back. One of them called out, "Hello, Hildred," and came back to shake hands with me. It was my cousin, Louise, who stood smiling and tapping her spurred heels with her riding whip. "Just back from Westchester," she said. "Been doing the bucolic, milk and curds, you know, dairy maids in sunbonnets, who say, 'Hill,' and 'I don't think,' when you tell them they are pretty. I'm nearly dead for a square meal at Delmonico's." What's the news? There is none, I replied pleasantly. I saw your regiment coming in this morning. Did you? I didn't see you. Where were you? In Mr. Wilde's window. Oh, hell, she began impatiently. That man is stark mad. I don't understand why you... She was so annoyed, she saw how annoyed I felt by this outburst and begged my pardon. Really, old chap, she said. I don't mean to run down a man you like, but for the life of me, you know, you can get someone better, right? No, it says. But for the life of me, I can't see what the deuce you find in common with Mr. Wilde. He's not well bred, to put it generously. He is hideously deformed. His head is the head of a criminally insane person. You know yourself he's been in an asylum. So have I interrupted calmly. Louise looked startled and confused for a moment, but recovered and slapped me hardly on the shoulder. You were completely cured, she began, but I stopped her again. I suppose you mean that I was simply acknowledged never to have been insane? Of course, that's what I meant, she laughed. I disliked her laugh because I knew it was forced, but I nodded gaily and asked her where she was going. Louise looked after her brother officers who had now almost reached Broadway. We had intended to sample, Brent's... They're just normal.
We're just innocent, man.
They're just innocent. Nodded gaily. Oh shit, confirmed. We had intended to sample a Brunswick cocktail, but to tell you the truth, I was anxious for an excuse to go and see Hawberk instead. Come along, I'll make you my excuse. We found old Hawberk, neatly attired in a fresh spring suit, standing at the door of his shop and sniffing the air.
I had just decided to take...
Hold on, what was the voice?
Oh, yes, this is the voice. There we go. I had just decided to take Constance for a little stroll before dinner,
he replied to the impetuous volley of questions from Louise.
We thought of walking to the park terrace along the North River.
At that moment, Constance appeared and grew pale and rosy by turns as Louise bent over her small gloved fingers. I tried to excuse myself, alleging an engagement uptown, but Louise and Constance would not listen, and I saw I was expected to remain and engage old Hawberk's attention. After all, it would be just as well if I kept my eye on Louise, I thought, and when they hailed a Spring Street horse car, I got in after them and took my seat beside the armorer. The beautiful line of parks and granite terraces overlooking the wharves along the North River, which were built in 1910 and finished in the autumn of 1917. I love how much this writer loves to talk about stuff that was built in specific years. We all need an interest. Had become one of the most popular promenades in the metropolis. They extended from the Battery to 190th Street, overlooking the Noble River and affording a fine view of the Jersey Shore and highlands opposite. Cafes and restaurants were scattered here and there among the trees, and twice a week military bands from the garrison played in the kiosks on the parapets. Gonna take a sip. I'm out of sippy. I shall get myself a new sippy. I'll be back in a minute or so. See you guys soon. No, my ice cubes! Oh man, everything is fucked now. It's not that fucked because I have a robot that moves before me. It's not that bad. Could be worse. Also, they said that I have a robot that goes for me, so that I mean the floor isn't that dirty. It's fine. I don't need that the robot's gonna clean up the ice cubes. Because she wouldn't do good with water. I return. Hello. I have gotten new drink. Oh, I bet it's very sweet. Okay. All stretched and ready to go. In this time, writers wrote very specifically about real-world locations because books were more locally spread, and the people reading could either visit or go, "Oh shit, my town mentioned." That is interesting. Thank you. What if the asylum is just there to induct you into the Yellow King cult? Speculation. I doubt that because the guy that put him in it, Dr. Archer, the protagonist seems to want to end him, maybe, or something. And I don't think he would do that if that's the guy that put you in the cult that you love. And yeah, it honestly does explain a lot of other writing that I've read, Jody. Where was I? We sat down in the sunshine on the bench at the foot of the equestrian statue of General Sheridan. Wow, they made him a horse person, like in Equestria Girls. Good for him. So we gotta look. You're about to be blasted. I know. I'm fearing for my life here. I hope I can get through this one short story before then. Actually, how long is this story? Damn, that's a lot actually. Didn't think it'd be this long. That's not that much less than what we've read so far. Might not even finish this entire repair of reputations today. Bit of a shame, but so be it. Ray blast. No! I'm going to die, Chad. I'm about to get killed. Are we talking... Dude, are we talking horses? We sat down in the sunshine on the bench at the foot of the equestrian statue of General Sheridan. Constance tipped her sunshade to shield her eyes, and she and Louise began a murmuring conversation which was impossible to catch. Old Haberg, leaning on his ivory-headed cane, lighted an excellent cigar, the mate to which I politely refused and smiled at vacancy. The sun hung low above the Staten Island woods, and the bay was dyed with golden hues reflected from the sun-warmed sails of the shipping in the harbor. Brigs, schooners, yachts, clumsy ferry boats, their decks swarming with people, railroad transports carrying lines of brown, blue, and white freight cars, stately sound streamers de classe, which, having lost or been reduced to a lower social status, class, or rank, or like D-class, I see. Déclassé, I think. Déclassé steamers, fuck. Coasters, dredgers, scows, and everywhere pervading the entire bay impudent little tugs puffing and whistling officiously. Those were the craft which churned the sunlight waters as far as the eye could reach. In calm contrast to the hurry of sailing vessels and steamer, a silent fleet of white warships lay motionless in midstream. Constance's merry laugh aroused me from my reverie. "What are you staring at?" she inquired. "Nothing. The fleet," I smiled. Another ray on me! Like on me? Or on me? Because you can't really put, I mean, I guess you can put it on me. Do I put it like here? Do I put it here? Like where do you want it, Jody? I like how the rays are alternating direction. Thank you. It was my own the pattern arose at the end of the other rays. Okay. Man, I'm being fucking shot, dude. This sucks. If I wanted to really bring it down, or like bring it home, I would like make each ray a little bit smaller, thus creating a sense of depth. You know?
Egg.
You know, it's because it's like Hold on. It's like, ooh, you know. I thought I'd like pantomime it. It doesn't fucking work. And also, just some trans girl, thank you for your egg. There you go. The blast is gone. Sorry. The blast does not exist when zoomed in. Sorry about that. We must implement ray tracing. So we can figure out where this beam is going. Then Louise told us what the vessels were, pointed out each by its relative position to the old red fort on Governor's Island. That little cigar-shaped thing is a torpedo boat, she explained. There are 4 more lying close together. They are the Tarpon, the Falcon, the Sea Fox, and the Octopus. The gunboats just above are the Princeton, the Champlain, the Stillwater, and the Erie. Next to them lie the cruisers Farragut and Los Angeles, and above them the battleships California and Dakota, and the Washington, which is the flagship. Those 2 squadly-looking chunks of metal which are anchored there off Castle Williams are the double turreted monitors, terrible and magnificent. Damn. Behind them lies the ram, Osceola. Constance looked at her with deep approval in her beautiful eyes. What loads of things you know for a soldier, she said, and we all joined in a laugh which followed. Presently Louise rose with a nod to us and offered her arm to Constance, and they strolled away along the river wall. Hallberg watched them for a moment and then turned to me. Mr. Wilde, hold on.
Yes. Ah, yes, there we go. Mr. Wilde was right.
He said.
I have found the missing tassets and left Cussard of the Prince's Emblazoned in a vile old junk garret in Hull Street.
998? I inquired with a smile.
Yes.
Mr. Wilde is a very intelligent man, I observed.
I want to give him the credit for this most important discovery,
continued Hallberg.
and I intend it shall be known that he is entitled to the fame of it.
He won't thank you for that, I answered sharply. Please say nothing about it.
Do you know what it is worth?
Said Hallberg. No. $50, perhaps?
It is valued at 500, but the owner of the Prince's Emblazoned will give $2,000 to the person who completes his suit. That reward also belongs to Mr. Wilde.
He doesn't want it. He refuses it, I answered angrily. What do you know about Mr. Wilde? He doesn't need the money. He's rich, or will be, richer than any living man except myself. What will we care for money then? What will we care, he and I, when...
When what?
Demanded Hallberg, astonished. You will see. You will see, I replied, on my guard again. He looked at me narrowly, much as Dr. Archer used to, and I knew he thought I was mentally unsound. Perhaps it was fortunate for him that he did not use the word lunatic just then. No, I replied to his unspoken thought. I am not mentally weak. My mind is as healthy as Mr. Wilde's. I do not care to explain just yet what I have on hand, but it is an investment which will pay more than mere gold, silver, and precious stones. It will secure the happiness and prosperity of a continent, yes, a hemisphere.
Oh. Oh,
said Hallberg. That's funny. That is good. Oh, so yeah, this dude's passing up a lot of money. And eventually, I continued more quietly, it will secure the happiness of the whole world.
And incidentally, your own happiness and prosperity as well as Mr. Wilde's?
Exactly.
Uh-oh,
he said, backing away slowly. Yeah. Exactly, I smiled, but I could have throttled him for taking that tone. He looked at me in silence for a while and then said very gently,
Why don't you give up your books and studies, Mr. Castaigne, and take a tramp up among the mountains somewhere or other? You used to be fond of fishing. Take a cast or two at the trout in the Rangellies.
I don't care for fishing anymore, I answered, without a shade of annoyance in my voice.
You used to be fond of everything,
He continued.
athletics, yachting, shooting, riding.
I've never cared to ride since my fall, I said quietly.
Ah, yes. Your fall.
He repeated, looking away from me. I thought this nonsense had gone far enough, so I brought the conversation back to Mr. Wilde, but he was scanning my face again in a manner highly offensive to me.
Mr. Wilde.
He repeated.
Do you know what he did? What he did this afternoon? He came downstairs and nailed a sign over the hall door next to mine. It read, Mr. Wilde, repairer of reputations. Third bell. Do you know what a repairer of reputations can be?
I do, I replied, suppressing the rage within.
Oh,
He said again. Louise and Constance came strolling by and stopped to ask if we would join them. Hallberg looked at his watch. At the same moment, a puff of smoke shot from the casemates of Castle Williams, and the boom of the sunset gun rolled across the water and was re-echoed from the highlands opposite. The flag came running down from the flagpole. The bugles sounded on the white decks of the warships, and the first electric light sparkled out from the Jersey shore. As I turned into the city with Hallberg, I heard Constance murmur something to Louise, which I did not understand. But Louise whispered, "My darling," in reply. And again, walking ahead with Hallberg through the square, I heard a murmur of "sweetheart" and "my own Constance." And I knew the time had nearly arrived when I should speak of important matters with my cousin Louise. Alright, let's see, because that's the end of chapter 2. We are on page 24. We have to get to page 37, and we started on page... You're not gonna believe this. 1. That's crazy. I would like to finish reading it today. Let's see, what have I got on the agenda tomorrow? That's fine. It's fine, we'll finish it. We'll keep reading. So, chapter 3. I do believe Repair of Reputations is the longest of the stories, but I might be wrong about that. Let's see. Here we go. Oh yes, yeah. It's the longest. Fucker upper of reputations. Or ruiner of reputations if you want to keep the alliteration. One morning early in May, I stood before the steel safe in my bedroom, trying on the golden jeweled crown. Oh, trying it on this time. Getting very brave. The diamonds flashed fire as I turned to the mirror, and the heavy beaten gold burned like a halo about my head. I remembered Camilla's agonized scream and the awful words echoing through the dim streets of Cosa. They were the last lines in the first act, and I dared not think of what followed. Dared not, even in the spring sunshine. I just realized that this is about a guy who got mad from reading a play, and it's a 3-act structure like a play would have. Maybe meaning something. The fucker of fame, that's fun too. Fuckler! The fuckler of fame. You guys can't read the typo now because there's U-butts in front of it, but it's there. Or maybe it was intentional. They were the last lines in the first act, and I dared not think of what followed. Dared not, even in the spring sunshine, there in my own room, surrounded with familiar objects, reassured by the bustle from the street and the voices of the servants in the hallway outside. For those poisoned words had dropped slowly into my heart, as death sweat drops upon a bedsheet and is absorbed. Trembling, I put the diadem from my head and wiped my forehead. But I thought of Hester and of my own rightful ambition. And I remembered Mr. Wilde as I had last left him, his face all torn and bloody from the claws of that devil's creature, and what he said. Ah, what he said. The alarm bell in the safe began to whir harshly, and I knew my time was up. But I would not heed it, and replacing the flashing circlet upon my head, I turned defiantly to the mirror. I stood for a long time, absorbed in the changing expression of my own eyes. The mirror reflected a face which was like my own, but whiter and so thin that I hardly recognized it. And all the time I kept repeating between my clenched teeth, "The day has come. The day has come." What? Oh, surprise! It's been a tails beam this whole time! Wow! Is it a beam that gives you tails? Will I finally have a tail? That would be fun. Can it be a cool mechanical tail, please? Also, that's in my face. Diadem that makes you white. Fucked up. The whitewashing diadem. Very well loved in Hollywood. While the alarm in the safe whirred and clamored and the diamonds sparkled and flamed above my brow, I heard a door open but did not heed it. It was only when I saw two faces in the mirror. It was only when another face rose over my shoulder and two other eyes met mine. I wheeled like a flash and seized a long knife from my dressing table, and my cousin sprang back very pale, crying, "Hildred, for God's sake!" Then, as my hand fell, she said, "It is I, Louise. Don't you know me?" I stood silent. I could not have spoken for my life. She walked up to me and took the knife from my hand. "What is all this?" she inquired in a gentle voice. "Are you ill?" "No," I replied, but I doubt if she heard me. Come, old fellow," she cried. "Take off that brass crown and toddle into the study. Are you going to a masquerade? What's all this theatrical tinsel anyway?" I was glad he thought the crown was made of brass and paste, yet I didn't like him any the better for thinking so. I let him take it from my hand, knowing it was best to humor her. Sorry, Hold on, I have to go back. I was glad she thought the crown was made of brass and paste, yet I didn't like her any the better for thinking so. I let her take it from my hand, knowing it was best to humor her. She tossed the splendid diadem in the air, and catching it, turned to me, smiling. It's dear at 50 cents, she said. "What's it for?" I did not answer, but took the circlet from her hands, and placing it in the safe, shut the massive steel door. The alarm ceased its infernal dim at once. She watched me curiously, but did not seem to notice the sudden ceasing of the alarm. She did, however, speak of the safe as a biscuit box. Fearing lest she might examine the combination, I led the way into my study. Louise threw herself on the sofa and flinched at flies with her eternal riding whip. She wore her fatigue uniform with the braided jacket and jaunty cap, and I noticed that her riding boots were all splashed with red mud. "Where have you been?" I inquired. "Jumping mud creeks in Jersey," she said. "I haven't had time to change yet. I was rather in a hurry to see you." "Haven't you got a glass or something? I'm dead tired. Been in the saddle 24 hours. Fuck, dude. I feel bad for the horse." I gave her some brandy from my medical store, which she drank with a grimace. "Damned bad stuff," she observed. "I'll give you an address where they sell brandy that is brandy." "It's good enough for my needs," I said indifferently. "I use it to rub my chest with." She stared and flicked at another fly. "See here, old fellow," she began. "I've got something to suggest to you. It's 4 years now that you've shut yourself up here like an owl, never going anywhere, never taking any healthy exercise, never doing a damn thing but poring over those books up there on the mantelpiece." She glanced along the row of shelves. "Napoleon, Napoleon, Napoleon," she read. "For heaven's sake, have you nothing but Napoleons there?" "I wish they were bound in gold," I said. "But wait, yes, there is another book. The King in Yellow." I looked her steadily in the eye. "Have you ever read it?" I asked. "Yeah. Adjust hair, look nicer. Make hair look nicer." No, thank God, I don't want to be driven crazy." I saw she regretted her speech as soon as she had uttered it. There is only one word which I loathe more than I do a lunatic, and that word is crazy. But I controlled myself and asked him why she ask her why she thought the King in Yellow dangerous. Oh, I don't know, she said hastily. I only remember the excitement it created and the denunciations from pulpit and press. I believe the author shot himself after bringing forth this monstrosity, didn't he? See, I was wondering about that. I was wondering, we're not talking about the author at all. Right? So what's that about? I was half expecting to just go like, it materialized out of thin air in every bookstore across the planet. But no, this is also interesting. Literal death of the author, yeah. I understand he is still alive, I answered. That's probably true, she muttered. Bullets couldn't kill a fiend like that. It is a book of great truths, I said. Yes, she replied, of truths, which send men frantic and blast their lives. I don't care if the thing is, as they say, the very supreme essence of art. It's a crime to have written it, and I, for one, shall never open its pages. Is that what you have come to tell me? I asked. No, she said. I came to tell you that I am going to be married. I believe for a moment my heart ceased to beat, but I kept my eyes on her face. Yes, she continued, smiling happily, married to the sweetest girl on earth. Constance Hawberk, I said mechanically. How did you know? She cried, astonished. I didn't know it myself until that evening last April, when we strolled down to the embankment before dinner. When is it to be? I asked. It was to have been next September, but an hour ago a dispatch came ordering our regiment to the Presidio, San Francisco. We leave at noon tomorrow. Tomorrow, he repeated. Just think, Hildred. Tomorrow I shall be the happiest fellow that ever drew breath in this jolly world, for Constance will go with me. I offered her my hand in congratulation, and she seized it and shook it like the good-natured fool she was, or pretended to be. I'm going to get my squadron as a wedding present, she rattled on. Captain and Miss Louise Castaigne, eh, Mildred? Then she told me where it was to be, and who were to be there, and made me promise to come and be best man. I set my teeth and listened to her girlish it's boyish, so it's girlish chatter without showing what I felt, but I was getting to the limit of my endurance, and when she jumped up and, switching her spurs till they jingled, said she must go, I did not detain her. There's one thing I want to ask of you, I said quietly. Out with it, it's promised, she laughed. I want you to meet me for a quarter of an hour's talk tonight. Of course, if you wish, she said, somewhat puzzled. Where? Anywhere, in the park there. What time, Hildred? Midnight. What in the name of... She began, but checked herself and laughingly assented. I watched her go down the stairs and hurry away, her saber banging at every stride. She turned into Bleecker Street, and I knew he was going to see Constance. She turned into Bleecker Street, and it's so hard to change pronouns as you read the wrong pronouns. She turned into Bleecker Street, and I knew she was going to see Constance. I gave her 10 minutes to disappear and then followed in her footsteps, taking with me the jeweled crown and the silken robe embroidered with the yellow sign. When I turned into Bleecker Street and entered the doorway which bore the sign, Mr. Wilde, Repairer of Reputations, Third Bell, I saw every time they have a name of a sign like this, it's like this, by the way. It's like big, it's given its own spot. It's intense. Oh, Omega fires away from the other side. There's no escape. No! Why are you doing this to me? Isn't it Shadow that's firing the beam? Oh no, wait, a Ray. Dumb. You said Omega first, so I assumed you meant Omega. Never mind, I got it. I'm smart. You know, after a moment. This dude's gonna kill his own cousin. Probably by pushing her into the death chamber. I saw old Hallberg moving about in his shop and imagined I heard Constance's voice in the parlor, but I avoided them both and hurried up the trembling stairways to Mr. Wilde's apartment. I knocked and entered without ceremony. Mr. Wilde lay groaning on the floor, his face covered with blood, his clothes torn to shreds. Drops of blood were scattered about over the carpet, which had also been ripped and frayed in the evidently recent struggle.
It's that cursed cat.
He said, ceasing his groans and turning his colorless eyes to me.
She attacked me while I was asleep. I believe she will kill me yet.
This was too much, so I went into the kitchen and, seizing a hatchet from the pantry, started to find the... Okay, so... This is a little, I think we're gonna get maybe an animal death here, so... If that is a problem for you, perhaps... either ready for that or, see yourself out at your own convenience. And seizing a hatchet from the pantry, started to find the infernal beast and settle her then and there. My search was fruitless, and after a while I gave it up and came back to find Mr. Wilde squatting on his high chair by the table. Okay, no animal death yet, but still, it's on the table. He had washed his face and changed his clothes. The great furrows which the cat's claws had plowed upon his face he had filled with collodion, a highly flammable, colorless and yellowish syrupy solution of nitrocellulose in ether and alcohol, used as an adhesive to close small wounds or for making photographic plates. Mr. Wilde's on the table, of course, yes. There can be two things on the table. Mr. Wilde's very small, there's space. And a rag hid the wound by his throat. I told him I should kill the cat when I came across her, but he only shook his head and turned to the open ledger before him. He read name after name of the people who had come to him in regard to their reputation, and the sums he had amassed were startling.
I put on the screw now and then,
he explained. One day or other, some of these people will assassinate you, I insisted.
Do you think so?
He said, rubbing his mutilated ears. It was useless to argue with him, so I took down the manuscript entitled Imperial Dynasty of America for the last time I should ever take it down in Mr. Wilde's study. I read it through, thrilling and trembling with pleasure. When I had finished, Mr. Wilde took the manuscript and, turning to the dark passage which leads from his study to the bedchamber, called out in a loud voice,
"Vance!"
Then, for the first time, I noticed a man crouching there in the shadow. How I had overlooked him during my search for the cat, I cannot imagine.
"Vance, come in,"
cried Mr. Wilde. The figure rose and crept towards us, and I shall never forget the face that he raised to mine as the light from the window illuminated it.
"Vance, this is Mr. Castaigne,"
said Mr. Wilde. Before he had finished speaking, the man threw himself on the ground before the table, crying and grasping. "Oh God! Oh God! Oh my God! Help me! Forgive me! Oh, Mr. Castaigne, keep the man away! You cannot mean it! You are different! Save me! I am broken down! I was in a madhouse, and now, when all was coming through, when I had forgotten the king in yellow, but I should go mad again! I should go mad!" His voice died into a choking rattle, for Mr. Wilde had leapt on him, and his right hand encircled the man's throat. When Vance fell in a heap on the floor, Mr. Wilde clambered nimbly into his chair again, and rubbing his mangled ears with the stump of his hand, turned to me and asked me for the ledger. What? Why did that just happen? I reached it down from the shelf and he opened it. After a moment's searching among the beautifully written pages, he coughed complacently and pointed to the name Vance.
"Vance,"
he read aloud.
"Osgood Oswald Vance."
At the sound of his name, the man on the floor raised his head and turned a convulsed face to Mr. Wilde. His eyes were injected with blood, his lips tumefied, which means swollen.
Called April 28th,
continued Mr. Wilde.
Occupation, cashier in the Seaforth National Bank. had served a term of forgery at Sing Sing, from whence he was transferred to the asylum for the criminal insane, pardoned by the governor of New York, and discharged from the asylum January 19th, 1918. Reputation damaged at Sheepshead Bay. Rumors that he lives beyond his income. Reputation to be repaired at once. Retainer $1,500. Note: has embezzled sums amounting to $30,000 since March 20th, 1919. Excellent family and secured present position through uncle's influence. Father, president of Seaforth Bank. I looked at the man on the floor. Get up, Vance, said Mr. Wilde in a gentle voice. Vance rose as if hypnotized. He will do as we suggest now, observed Mr. Wilde, and opening the manuscript, he read the entire history of the Imperial Dynasty of America. Then, in a kind and soothing murmur, he ran over the important points with Vance, and stood like one stunned. Who stood like one stunned? His eyes were so blank and vacant that I imagined he had become half-witted, and remarked it to Mr. Wilde, who replied that it was of no consequence anyway. Very patiently, we pointed out to Vance what his share in the affair would be, and he seemed to understand after a while. Mr. Wilde explained the manuscript, using several volumes on heraldry to substantiate the result of his researches. He mentioned the establishment of the dynasty in Carcosa, the lakes which connected Hester, Aldebaran, and the mystery of the Hyades. He spoke of Casilda and Camilla, and sounded the cloudy depths of Demhe and the lake of Hali. Like Bionicle? The scalloped tatters of the King in Yellow must The scalloped tatters of the King in Yellow must hide Ithil forever, he muttered. But I do not believe Vance heard him. Then, by degrees, he led Vance along the ramifications of the imperial family to Uoth and Thale, from now Talba and Phantom of Truth to Eldenese, and then, tossing aside his manuscript and notes, he began the wonderful story of the last king. Fascinated and thrilled, I watched him. He threw up his head, his long arms were stretched out in a magnificent gesture of pride and power, and his eyes blazed deep in their sockets like two emeralds. Vance listened, stupefied. As for me, when at last Mr. Wilde had finished, and pointed to me and cried, "The cousin of the king!" my head swam with excitement. Controlling myself with a superhuman effort, I explained to Vance why I alone was worthy of the crown, and why my cousin must be exiled or die. Fuck. This is so intense. I assume, I don't think this is Mr. Wilde, leading Castaigne on. I think it really was just in the writing. And, this is like a wiki. These guys are maintaining a wiki, but they're weird about it. Because they're really into the King in Yellow, and they have this entire manuscript about everything that's in it. I am guessing. I am formulating. It's just that there happens to be a name, Castaigne, in the story, as well as this guy, and he decided to make it his entire personality that it is going to get him to kill people. Everyone who maintains a wiki is a weirdo. That's true, but they can be nice weirdos. That's okay, I made him understand that my cousin must never marry, even after renouncing all his claims, and how that least of all he should marry the daughter of the Marquis of Avonshire and bring England into the question. I showed him a list of thousands of names which Mr. Wilde had drawn up. Oh wait, okay. Okay, hold on. Weirdo, positive, sometimes. So, earlier on in the story, what the fuck is his name?
I forgot the name of the protagonist, the last name. Well, anyway, that guy, he said that the armorer was actually like the Marquis of Evanshire, and the armorer seemed to respond very badly to that, implying at the time that he was. But also maybe he's just like, that's way too far fucking fetched. Now you're being weird. You know? That actually seems a little bit more likely. But maybe. I mean, because like if Mr. Wilde knows the location of this armor and stuff, then surely he must be right about that as well, right? I would assume. Anyway, we'll keep reading. I showed him a list of thousands of names which Mr. Wilde had drawn up. Every man whose name was there had received the yellow sign, which no living human being dared disregard. The city, the state, the whole land were ready to rise and tremble before the pallid mask. The time had come. The people should know the son of Hester, and the whole world bowed to the black stars which hang in the sky over Carcosa. Vance leaned on the table, his head buried in his hands. Mr. Wilde drew a rough sketch on the margin of yesterday's Herald with a bit of lead pencil. It was a plan of Hawberk's rooms. Then he wrote out the order and affixed the seal, and shaking like a palsied man, I signed my first writ of execution with my name, Hildred Rex. Rex means king. That's not even a footnote, I just know that because dinosaurs. I was very much into dinosaurs as a kid. Mr. Wilde, and also knowing that Tyrannosaurus Rex means King Lizard is not that... That's not that niche. I assume. But I don't know, maybe everybody in chat's like, I didn't know that. Anyway, Mr. Wilde clambered to the floor and unlocking the cabinet, took a long square box from the first shelf. This he brought to the table and opened. A new knife lay in the tissue paper inside, and I picked it up and handed it to Vance, along with the order and the plan of Hawberk's apartment. Then Mr. Wilde told Vance he could go, and he went, shambling like an outcast of the slums. I sat for a while watching the daylight fade behind the square tower of the Judson Memorial Church, and finally, gathering up the manuscript and notes, took my hat and started for the door. Mr. Wilde watched me in silence. When I had stepped into the hall, I looked back. Mr. Wilde's small eyes were still fixed on me. Behind them, the shadows gathered in the fading light. Then I closed the door behind me and went out into the darkening streets. I'd eaten nothing since breakfast, but I was not hungry. A wretched, half-starved creature who stood looking across the street, the lethal chamber, noticed me and came up to tell me a tale of misery. I gave him money, I don't know why, and he went away without thanking me. An hour later, another outcast approached and whined his story. I had a blank bit of paper in my pocket on which was traced the yellow sign, and I handed it to him. He looked at it stupidly for a moment, and then, with an uncertain glance at me, folded it with what seemed to be exaggerated care and placed it in his bosom. The electric lights were sparkling among the trees, and the new moon shone in the sky above the lethal chamber. It was tiresome waiting in the square. I wandered from the marble arch to the artillery tables and back again to the lotus fountain. The flowers and grass exhaled a fragrance which troubled me. The jet of the fountain played in the moonlight, and the musical splash of falling drops reminded me of the tinkle of chained mail in Hawberk's shop. But it was not so fascinating, and the dull sparkle of the moonlight on the water brought no such sensation of exquisite pleasure as when the sunshine played over the polished steel of a corselet on Hawberk's knee. I watched the bats darting and turning above the water plants in the fountain basin, but their rapid, jerky flight set my nerves on edge, and I went away to walk aimlessly to and fro among the trees. I want off Mr. Wilde's right. Me too. This is it's gonna kill people. How's this story gonna end? I'm very curious, because we're nearing the end of, well, we're nearing the end of The Repair of Reputations, but of course that's only the first of 10 short stories. And I know they are loosely connected. They are connected by The King in Yellow, the play, but I don't know how... directly they are connected. The artillery stables were dark, but in the cavalry barracks, the officers' windows were brilliantly lighted, and the sally port was constantly filled with troopers in fatigue, carrying straw and harness, and baskets filled with tin dishes. Twice, the mounted sentry at the gates was changed while I was wandering up and down the asphalt walk. I looked at my watch. It was nearly time. The lights in the barracks went out one by one. The barred gate was closed, and every minute or two an officer passed in through the side wicket, leaving a rattle of accoutrements and a jingle of spurs on the night air. The square had become very silent. The last homeless loiterer had been driven away with a grey-coated park policeman, ACAP. The car tracks along Worcester Street were deserted, and the only sound which broke the stillness was the stamping of the sentry's horse and the ring of his saber against the saddle pommel. In the barracks, the officers' quarters were still lighted, and military servants passed and repassed before the bay windows. 12 o'clock sounded from the new pier of St. Francis Xavier, and at the last stroke of the sad-toned bell, a figure passed through the wicket beside the portcullis, returned the salute of the sentry, and crossing the street, entered the square and advanced towards the Benedict apartment house. "Louise," I called. The King in Yellow and other stories. This bothers me so much. A lot of the versions, so I did a lot of research to find the good version of this book that just contained the stories and didn't have a shit fucking ass cover. And a lot of them were called The King in Yellow and Other Stories, which is fucking stupid because none of the stories in here are called The King in Yellow. It's not The King in Yellow and Other Stories, it's the stories about the King in Yellow. Don't fucking call it that. Just call it The King in Yellow. It's a perfectly good name. It's haunting. Thank you for bringing it up, Jody. I got to complain about that for a moment. That was nice. I don't understand why you would want to give it a different name anyway. Like, what's the point? It's a public domain thing. Why, if you're just re-releasing it, why do you feel like you need to give it a different name? You're not adding anything anyway. "Louise," I called. The woman pivoted on her spurred heels and came straight toward me. "Is that you, Hildred?" "Yes, you are on time." I took her offered hand and we strolled toward the lethal chamber. I took her. No, I said it right. She rattled on about her wedding and the graces of Constance and their future prospects, calling my attention to her captain's shoulder straps and the triple gold arabesque on her sleeves and fatigue cap. I believe I listened as much to the music of her spurs and saber as it did to her girlish babble, and at last we stood under the elms on the 4th Street corner on the square opposite the lethal chamber. Then she laughed and asked me what I wanted with her. I motioned her to a seat on a bench under the electric light and sat down beside her. Chatroom, cheers. 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 Thank you. And also, hello, Amir Aardvark, welcome. Where was I? She looked at me curiously, with that same searching glance which I hate and fear so in doctors. I felt the insult of her look, but she did not know it, and I carefully concealed my feelings. "Well, old chap?" she inquired. "What can I do for you?" I drew from my pocket the manuscript and notes of the Imperial Dynasty of America and looked her in the eye and said, "I will tell you. On your word as a soldier, promise me to read this manuscript from beginning to end without asking me a question. Promise me to read these notes in the same way and promise me to listen to what I have to tell after. I promise, if you wish, she said pleasantly. Give me the paper, Hildred. Ray attack from Omega. No! What a vile place I find myself in, attacked from both sides by those I once called friends. This is fucked, dude. She began to read, raising... Hold on. Okay, I'm still safe. She began to read, raising her eyebrows with a puzzled, whimsical air, which made me tremble with suppressed anger. As she advanced, her eyebrows contracted, and her lips seemed to form the word rubbish. Then she looked slightly bored, but apparently for my sake read with an attempt at interest. Kom op. Doe dat nou niet. Ik moet niet het boek voor iedereen verpesten. Ze schrok toen in de... Ja, ik weet eigenlijk niet zo goed hoe ik oud-Engels moet vertalen naar Nederlands. Het is heel moeilijk te doen. Like, nieuw Nederlands, I can do that. You know, that's not easy. But Old English, it's just too hard. I can't just do that on the spot. Sorry.
Oh, and also an Ulu. Okay, I guess I could do an Ulu. I'm sorry, I didn't see it. I really need a different sound effect for Ulu so that I can, like, recognize it by the sound alone, you know? Anyway. Where was I? She started winning the closely written pages. She came to her own name. And when she came to mine, she lowered the paper and looked sharply at me for a moment. But she kept her word and resumed her reading, and I let the half-formed question die on her lips unanswered. When she came to the end and read the signature of Mr. Wilde, she folded the paper carefully and returned it to me. I handed him the notes, and she settled back, pushing her fatigue cap up to her forehead with a girlish gesture, which I remembered so well in school. I watched his face, her fucked.
Okay, alright. We're killing her. It's, that was hard to do.
You will!
I think it's because I've already been talking for like 3 hours that, the Uwu voice is a little bit harder to do. Another sippy would be good actually, yes, thank you. And a stretch imposter check, don't mind if I do. No, gotta make sure I still sit over here. Okay. There we go. I handed her the notes. No, got that one. I watched her face as she read, and when she finished, I took the notes from the manuscript and placed them in my pocket. Then I unfolded a scroll marked with the yellow sign. She saw the sign, but she did not seem to recognize it, and I called her attention to it somewhat sharply. Well, she said, I see it. What is it? It is the yellow sign, I said angrily. Oh, that's it, is it? Said Louise in a flattering voice, which Dr. Archer used to employ with me and would probably have employed again had I not settled his affair for him. Oh, so he's already dead. Okay, good. We need an edit where the video is sped up to show how much you've shifted with the race. That would actually be funny. I should do that. Although I think I only shifted at like one moment. I didn't like overtime shift. It was just like one moment. Anyway, I kept my rage down and answered as steadily as possible. Listen, you have engaged your word? I am listening, old chap, she replied soothingly. I began to speak very calmly. Dr. Archer, having by some means become possessed of the secret of the imperial succession, attempted to deprive me of my right, alleging that because of a fall from my horse 4 years ago I had become mentally deficient. He presumed to place me under restraint in his own house in hopes of either driving me insane or poisoning me. I have not forgotten it. I visited him last night and the interview was final. Louise turned quite pale, but did not move. I resumed triumphantly. There are yet 3 people to be interviewed in the interests of Mr. Wilde and myself. They are my cousin Louise, Mr. Hawberk, and his daughter, Constance. Louise sprang to her feet, and I rose also, and flung the paper marked with the yellow sign to the ground. "Oh, I don't need to tell you what I have to say," I cried with a laugh of triumph. "You must renounce the crown to me, do you hear me? To me!" Louise looked at me with a startled air, but recovering herself, said kindly, "Of course I renounced it. What is it that I must renounce?" "The crown," I said angrily. "Of course," she answered, "I renounce it. Come, old chap, I'll walk you back to your rooms with you." "Don't try any of your doctor's tricks with me," I cried, trembling with fury. "Don't act as if you think I am insane." "What nonsense," she replied. "Come, it's getting late, Hildred." "No," I shouted. "You must listen. You cannot marry. I forbid it. Do you hear? I forbid it. You shall renounce the crown, and in reward I grant you exile. But if you refuse, you shall die." She tried to call me, but I was roused at last, and drawing my long knife, barred his way. Then I told him how he would find Dr. Archer in the cellar with his throat open, and I laughed in her face when I thought of Vance and his knife and the order signed by me. "Ah, you are the king," I cried, "but I shall be king. Who are you to keep me from empire over all the habitable earth? I was born the cousin of a king, but I shall be king." Louise stood white and rigid before me. Suddenly, a man came running up 4th Street, entering the gate of the Lethal Temple, traversed the path to the bronze doors at full speed, and plunged into the death chamber with the cry of one demented, and I laughed until I wept tears, for I had recognized Vance, and I knew that Hawberk and his daughter were no longer in my way. "Go," I cried to Louise. "You have ceased to be a menace. You will never marry Constance now, and if you marry anyone else in your exile, I will visit you as I did my doctor last night. Mr. Wilde takes charge of you tomorrow." Then I turned and darted into South 5th Avenue, and with a cry of terror, Louise dropped her belt and saber and followed me like the wind. I heard her close behind me at the corner of Bleecker Street, and I dashed into the doorway under Hawberk's sign. He cried, "Halt, or I fire!" But when she saw that I flew up the... She cried, "Halt or I fire," excuse me. But when she saw that I flew up the stairs, leaving Hawberk's shop below, she left me, and I heard her hammering and shouting at the door, as though it were possible to arouse the dead. Mr. Wilde's door was open, and I entered, crying, "It is done! It is done! Let the nations rise and look upon their king!" But I could not find Mr. Wilde. So I went to the cabinet and took the splendid diadem from its case. Then I drew on the white silk robe, embroidered with the yellow sign, and placed the crown upon my head. At last, I was king. King by my right in Hester. King because I knew the mystery of the Hyades, and my mind had sounded the depths of the Lake of Hali, like Bionicle. I was king! King has capitalized K every single time. The first gray pencilings of dawn would raise a tempest which would shake 2 hemispheres. Then, as I stood with my every nerve pitched to the highest tension, faint with the joy and splendor of my thoughts, without, in the dark passage, a man groaned. I seized the tallow dip and sprang to the door. The cat passed me like a demon, and the tallow dip went out, but my long knife flew swifter than she, and I heard her screech, and I knew that my knife had found her. For a moment, I listened to her tumbling and thumping about in the darkness, and then when her frenzy ceased, I lighted a lamp and raised it over my head. Mr. Wilde lay on the floor with his throat torn open. At first I thought he was dead, but but as I looked, a green sparkle came into his sunken eyes. His mutilated hand trembled, and then a spasm stretched his mouth from ear to ear. For a moment, my terror and despair gave place to hope, but as I bent over, his eyeballs rolled clean around in his head, and he died. Then, while I stood, transfixed with rage and despair, seeing my crown, my empire, every hope and every ambition, my very life, lying prostrate there with the dead master, they came, seized me from behind, and bound me until my veins stood out like cords, and my voice filled with the paroxysms of my frenzied screams. But I still raged, bleeding and infuriated among them, and more than one policeman, Agap, felt my sharp teeth. Then, when I could no longer move, they came nearer. I saw old Hawberk, and behind him, my cousin Louise's ghastly face, and farther away, in the corner, a woman, Constance, weeping softly. "Ah, I see it now!" I shrieked. "You have seized the throne and the empire! Woe! Woe to you who are crowned with the crown of the king in yellow!" Editor's note: Mr. Castaigne died yesterday in the asylum of the criminally insane. And that's the end. That's good. That's really good. That was fun. Good story. It's such a... This kind of horror from like this era and like with H.P. Lovecraft, same era, you know? It's usually, like, when it is represented these days, it's usually personified by a monster that lurks just in the shadows, and if you see it, you go mad, and then... blah, blah, blah. They read a poem? Or they read a play, and then we just follow the monster the entire time. Essentially, more Rage to Celebrate from the guy will do so. It's so effective. I like it. I'm not that good, I think, at analyzing, at least not via words, analyzing fiction. So someone else would do a better job at it, but I really enjoyed reading it. It was very effective. I thought it was good horror. Fucked up. That guy fucked up. Fucked up guy, but he got to be king, so that's nice. What did you guys think of it? What does it mean to go mad anyway? Yeah. When your mind betrays you, it's a lot. I think it's mad, rad, and full of lad. No, silly. This isn't about Dracula. I'm not reading Dracula right now, silly. You know, Vlad the Impaler Symphony joke. Wait, what? You aren't? I'm not. Are you mad? Have you been hearing me say the wrong? Hold on a second. This does say Dracula! That's the real scare all along. Another Ray also, here we go. I'd better end this stream fast before I am truly caught between the blasts. Cringe, read Dracula. If you wanna, you can go to Holly's channel. She reads Dracula. I could. I remember when they did that like Dracula Daily thing. I failed to keep up with that, sadly, but it was very good. I do like Dracula as well, from what I've read about it. As a story from the perspective of a madman, it is very effective. It trusts the audience to realize that the narrator is unreliable, which is unusual for the era. Yeah, you know what? That's a very good way of putting it. Jody, who has a degree in reading stuff, knows what she's talking about. That's good. It does very much trust the audience to realize that the narrator is unreliable. It's good. It's a good fucking story. So that is the first of 10. With the next story being called... The Mask. Which is cool, because of course we have heard about a mask being mentioned several times. That one is 22 pages long, which is longer than 39. I mean, shorter than 39. I'm not that bad at math. I'm not that bad. And then after that, they start being somewhere between 10, mostly like about 10 pages long. There's another one that's about 20. So yeah, we can keep reading these. I want to keep reading them. I mean, do let me know if you guys thought that was entertaining and interesting and fun. Like the Jim Carrey movie, also like Bionicle, The Mask, of Light. You know, Light is often depicted as yellow, so it makes sense. King, yellow, mask, yellow, light. Mask of Yellow, Light. Anyway, if you guys thought it was fun, I would love to keep reading these stories. So yeah, we can probably like read one story every stream that we do this. The lore runs deep. Truly, it does. It's been a while since I did a book nuke. I'm glad I did one again. The idea is also quite of its era. With the gentle increase of people who could read, tales of learning too much were commonplace. Demonic writing was very much warned about by the church, so at the time this came out, this kind of horror would have been very in the mainstream. Nice. I know someone else who was very scared of people learning too much. It was H.P. Lovecraft. But yeah, we'll call it quits here. I'll probably do a poll. No. Maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just do it. Just because I wanna. I might just do it. I might just keep reading, whether you guys like it or not. But I assume you guys like it. I'm not hearing any no's. I can't believe this guy went mad from seeing an Italian man. I mean, he went mad from reading a French book, I think. Didn't it come from France? Let's see. You know. Ow. Oh no, no, it comes from. I think it's from America. Do they specify? Volume flung, struck the barred grate and fell upon blah 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 blah. With Carcosa, of course. The Pellet Mask. Okay, so that's what the next story is about. Okay, so it's not from France. It might be from England. Because, okay, so when the French government seized the translated copies which had just arrived in London, shit. There goes my bookmark. Look at my bookmark! Yay! London, of course, became eager to read it. So, it's not from France, because it got translated to French. It might be from England, though. It might be a situation of, like, it was originally English, and then when word got out that this book was being banned in a different country, everybody in England was like, well, it's already here, so let's read it. We are saying no, we don't want to stream where you've just gone mad and can't comprehend the word. Well, not much I can do about that at that point. If I'm already mad, I might as well just embrace it, you know? I know, Jody, it was a joke about H.P. Lovecraft. I know, H.P. Lovecraft. Sorry, women, for writing the king in yellow. It's not French, Mels, you're fine. You didn't do it. But, we're gonna end the stream now. My next stream will be tomorrow. It'll be Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door, finally again, God, with Ali Spectacular. We are going to be continuing it, finally scaling the tower with Hooktail on it. Was it Hooktail? I think it was called Hooktail. The dragon, who's a lady. I'm so excited, yay! Exclamation point links in chat if you want a link to all of my stuff that will drive you mad. The best place to be driven mad is, of course, the Discord community. Discord server, rather. But you don't have to join the whole community if you don't want to. I totally get it. It's totally fine. Because all you get if you join is the announcements channel and a channel explaining how to get into full server if you want to, but no pressure at all. You may still stave off the madness if you prefer. She almost perished from the race, my friends, when they see me come back from walk. Yes, the sun is a deadly laser, as well know. The raid message shall be something about going mad. Any suggestions, y'all? While I look for a target. Let's see. Let's read Sam the Silky. Sam the Silky is a fellow member of RoxD, very nice, loves Sega games, and is playing Skies of Arcadia together with someone. I don't know who. Oh, Henchroog, Boog, who I don't know. Let's see. Okay, what's a phrase? We need a phrase from the book that we can use as a raid message, perhaps. Something from the excerpt. I'm just gonna do this one. Along the shore, the cloud waves break. The twin suns sink beneath the lake. The shadows lengthen in Carcosa. If we all repeat that phrase, that'll be nice and ominous. So, go ahead and copy that. Sam the Silky. Okay. So, thank you guys so much for coming. I hope you had a wonderful time. I hope this scary story has kept you company well during these late and weary stormy hours, which I have right now in my time zone. You probably don't. See you guys. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.